you doing today? Donna Adelson is back in court today. It seems like she is arguing for a change of venue. And based on Court TV's description, it seems like they brought in Brian Koberger's expert to testify about that. I wonder if this is the same expert who testified. And then remember, Brian Koberger's trial was initially in Latah County, but then it was eventually moved to Ada County. So I wonder if Donna's attorneys picked up, the headlines, was like, oh, let's argue for Donna. Let's say that the jury pool is potentially tainted with all the news, all the coverage. And so we want to have a change in venue and have Donna's trial elsewhere. I think that's what they're probably going to be arguing. Hi, Taxi. How are you doing today? Hello. Hello, everyone. So we're just going to hop right into it because it is a lengthy hearing today. And I did start pretty late. I had some stuff that I had to do. So we are starting a little bit late, and we are probably going to continue, oh gosh, probably in the early evening, maybe. I don't know. We'll see how it is. But we do have this hearing. It happened on, I think, was it last Friday? Yeah, last Friday. So we just got the footage yesterday from Court TV, and I was like, oh, cool. Let me watch this with you guys. And then also, we're waiting for Karen Reed verdict. We're on verdict watch right now. I think someone in my Discord said it's been over 8-9 hours maybe. So, I'm going to have my ears perked out for that one. And then we are done with Lori Vallow for now. Lori Vallow was found guilty last week by a jury in less than, I guess, like, to me, I thought it was like less than 10 minutes, but based on the amended time estimation, I think they said 45 minutes. So let's be a little bit fair to Lori Vallow, I guess. But we do have her sentencing in July, somewhere towards the end of July, which we will be covering. But guys, I'm just going to hop right into Donna Adelson, and then it's not the best audio, but I promise you guys the audio does get better when there are people speaking at their microphones. The attorneys, their microphones are way better, but we are going to get some really microphone issues. But I will probably slow it down for those moments, and then I'll speed it up when we got better audio. All right, y'all. Let's just jump right into it. Hi, everyone. Hope you had a good weekend.
In reviewing the motion, the affidavits in support, and also the memorandum of law, I wanted to make sure the state had not filed a formal response. You were planning to make your argument today. Is that correct?
I don't think they filed a response. We looked up today. Today's the 16th, right? I don't think they filed a response yet.
That's correct, Your Honor.
Very well. As to the affidavits in support, Mr. Zellman in particular, I saw that you had placed an affidavit concerning this matter, specifically for the court to consider this as it goes to both being advocate and witness in the same matter. How exactly is that to take place?
Your Honor, the rule requires an affidavit of 3 individuals, one being the defendant and 2 other individuals. It does not identify who they are, and also does not require that those individuals testify.
Again, you are the primary counsel for your client, correct?
Yes, Your Honor.
Uh-oh.
So as to your legal arguments and also your factual affidavit in support of, you believe the court can properly take notice of both?
Yes, Your Honor.
Does the state have any argument concerning those?
No, sir.
Very well. As to whether there's any issue with court accepting that as
And I like this judge. I feel like this judge, to me, seems like a really balanced, level-headed judge. And so far, I haven't had any issues with this judge so far. Only his fucking courtroom, because the audio, whatever we're doing to capture the audio here, it sucks, okay? I want clear audio. Hi, Name. How are you doing today?
evidence. I will conduct my own research, but we will move forward at this point. Do see Mr. Murphy is already in the Zoom. Mr. Murphy, good morning, sir. I think you're muted right now.
I only do this 10 times a day.
It's okay, Mr. Murphy. That happens to me all the fucking time. You good over there. Mr. Murphy is like, how do I unmute this shit, man?
Good morning, Your Honor. My apologies.
Good morning. Good to see you. The technology helps it be more convenient, but at the same time, well, at least you're not like the lawyer who was, I believe, on the Zoom saying I'm not a cat.
The morning is young, so I'll try to avoid that.
We're doing much better in that regard. All right, I believe previously in preparing for the hearing today, the time allotted was going to be 2 hours to defense to make their presentation. The state would have a half hour to respond. I will go ahead and swear in Mr. Murphy, and the defense's time will begin.
I didn't get to catch what the judge said, but was there an attorney on Zoom? I feel like I probably know. I've probably seen it before. I've probably seen it on YouTube. What did the attorney on Zoom say? What are they laughing about?
At that point, Mr. Murphy, please raise your right hand to be sworn, sir. Do you swear or affirm the testimony you're about to give today as a part of this proceeding will be the truth?
Yes, I do.
You may lower your hand. Mr. Zellman, you may examine the witness when you are ready.
Oh, yeah, I'd be happy to give a little mini recap on Donna Adelson. For those of you guys who are new to this case or just don't remember who the fuck Donna is, that's fine. Donna Adelson is supposedly the mastermind behind the murder of her former son-in-law. So Wendy Adelson's her daughter, and she was married to Dan Markel. They had two very young children together. They went through a divorce. It was very contentious, and Wendy wanted to relocate back to where her family was, which is like kind of like near South Miami-ish area. I forgot what's the name of it again, but it's like 30 minutes away. But she was living in Tallahassee with her family, so that's about a 6 hours drive. So the judge denied that because the father was living in Tallahassee, and, you know, you can't just up and move and take your kids away from the father. So they weren't very happy about that. Now, one day when Dan Markel had dropped the kids off at school, I believe, and then went to the gym, he came back home. He was sitting in his driveway in his Prius, or not, he wasn't in a Prius, sorry. The hitman's car wasn't a Prius. He was sitting in the driveway, and then all of a sudden, someone comes up to his window and shoots him. And so he goes to the hospital, and unfortunately, he didn't make it. Now, the crazy thing about this whole thing is that it's not just one person involved or two people or three. It's like a string of people. Apparently, Donna Adelson was working with her son, Charlie Adelson, who was convicted about 2 or 3 years ago, into working with Charlie's sort of former girlfriend. I don't know what the relationship was, maybe bang buddy or something like that. And she had her baby daddy and his friend go and murder Dan Markel. So it's like a string of people. It's like rich people hiring this person, finding a hitman, and then just basically killing Dan Markel. So this happened like over 11 years ago, and they are slowly going at and getting everyone one by one. So they went after the hitman. They went over the person that hired the hitman. They went over the person that hired the person that orchestrated the hitman, and then now they're going after Donna Adelson. So the people are wondering, are they going to go after Wendy next? Because a lot of people believe that Wendy Adelson was also involved in this as well. So we'll see what happens with Wendy after, you know, Donna has her trial and if she's convicted. Hi, Lauren. How are you doing today? Oh, yeah, I remember now. Yeah, I need to have a better soundbite for basically summarizing this case. Because it gets really complicated when you have so many family members involved. But they believe that her and her son, they're like the mastermind behind everything. All right, let's jump to the hearing.
Ready.
Thank you, Your Honor. I have a number of exhibits that we discussed the other day on a flash drive. May I approach with that?
You may.
Okay, the audio's
This
not
is
too
a
bad.
newer version of this binder.
Some of the information has been updated, yes, Your Honor.
That's Donna right there. Donna. There was a lot of things happening with Donna in the first half of the year, but so far, Donna's trial has been pushed back. It was supposed to happen like right now. Now it's been pushed back to August, and now they want to change a venue. Also, Donna's been transported to a new jail cell that she's being held at. She was at Leon County jail, and then I don't know where they moved her. They moved her to, I know the name of it, but I forgot. It was like a funky name that I couldn't pronounce properly. Hi, Rain.
Is there any objection from the state as to the court considering this as admitted evidence for the defense for the hearing?
No, Your Honor.
The jump drive will be defense 1. You may continue.
So the way that I have the drive organized, Your Honor, there are 6 folders. Exhibit 1, Exhibit 2, and Exhibit 3 are materials from Trusco. Can I have permission to share my screen so that Mr. Murphy can?
You may.
So Mr. Murphy isn't there. I believe he's the Brian Koberger defense expert, and I think he's on Zoom because I saw the judge basically allowed the expert to testify via Zoom, which is why the audio is not the greatest when he talks, unfortunately. Wah! But here it is. All right, I'm just going to skip over this part and 14th Amendment. Let's go.
If I may.
Go ahead.
It goes without saying that the 6th and 14th Amendments to the United States Constitution, as well as Article 1, Sections 9, 16, and 22 of the Florida Constitution, guarantee an accused a fair trial by an impartial jury. With that, Your Honor, I guess you've already sworn Mr. Murphy. Mr. Murphy, can you please introduce yourself to the court?
Yes, my full name is James Todd Murphy. I'm president of TrueScope in North America, Media Intelligence and Analysis Service.
And what is media intelligence and analysis?
Okay, do I need to turn him down when he talks? For me, it's loud, so I will turn it down, but let me see what it looks like on your guys' end. Jesus. It's always like this with the Zoom people, man.
Media intelligence is the overall term given to our industry that includes media monitoring, media analysis. It's kind of two components to the single industry. Media monitoring is the action of tracking and indexing and reporting media across or stories from media of all types. And then media analysis, sometimes called insights, is the analysis of that data, looking at both qualitative and quantitative information using a framework that is that can repeat valid results.
How does TrueScope gather that media?
We have two primary.
All right, so he's a fishbowl here. So this is Todd Murphy of TrueScope. That's the name of the company. He is the one who is going to be doing something called the media intelligence. And what encapsulates media intelligence is media monitoring and media analysis. So media monitoring, you're tracking and you're indexing medias for stories, he says. And then media analysis, also called insights, is the analysis of that data, quality and quantitative information. So he's basically hired to say that, like, hey, you know, I analyze the media and all the stories that have come out about this, probably locally as well, where they're going to pull from the jury. And it's possible that the jury pool could already be tainted and Donna Adelson won't have a fair trial. That's basically what they're going to say. That's what I'm guessing. I might be jumping around a little bit.
I would say two different methods. One is we use aggregators that pool content. So for like the broadcast data, we have a party that records all designated market areas, or those maybe simpler to think of those as cities. There's 210 city markets in the United States that are monitored. For example, New York City is number one, and it's based on the size of the market area. So for TV and radio, we aggregate all that, and it comes to us in a feed that has metadata attached, so we know the date, time, station, and then the video is indexed to a timestamp. We do the same thing with radio, podcasts. On the print side, we actually scan much of that, although we do receive feeds from partners of scanned and indexed data. Those generally are sent to us directly from the publishers as PDF images with the text layer behind it. So there's really no break in the chain coming from them for their printed media. We do the same thing with magazines. Social media, it's more of a feed.
So basically how he's getting all of his information, he says TV, radio, podcast, print, magazine, social media, and then he's going to talk about, I guess, gathering. Now, let me jump around here.
So if Judge Everett wanted a report each morning, for example, of anybody talking about him, he would get, at whatever specified time, a report of all media, or if there's no media today, he would get a report saying there's no news about you. That's the media monitoring side. The media analysis side then takes all that data that we've captured for a specific topic, and we run some automated systems against that to generate media dashboards, charts, graphs. That's mostly for the quantitative side. Once the quantitative side has been developed, then we apply our methodology for the qualitative analysis. And stop me if I'm going too deep for this question.
No, this is perfect. Please continue.
Okay, so once we have the quantitative, we create the qualitative frame, using the methodology within our framework for the qualitative data. And that's currently based on the Barcelona principles, Barcelona 3.0 principles, as set out by the Global Measurement Association.
I will say this, though. It is not this expert's fault that the audio sounds like he's in a fishbowl. He's on a Zoom call. He's, we're capturing his audio via speakers, I think, over the court. We don't have like an actual feed from his audio. So that's why it sounds like shit. It's not his fault.
Trade association called AMEC, A-M-E-C. So we use the AMEC principles to make sure that we're using best practices in evaluating the media that we've monitored.
Hey, Lauren.
Now, let's talk a little bit about your background and training. Can you tell the court about your background in media intelligence and analysis, please?
My family has been in the industry since before I was born. My father purchased a press clipping service, as they were called, in the late 50s. I began broadcast monitoring when I was 15. He wanted to add the TV and radio side, so I technically set that up for him. and graduated from college in 1991, began full-time, and then developed additional services like competitive media analysis, qualitative media analysis, and others.
You said you graduated from college. What is your degree in?
I have a degree in radio, television, and film, and a minor in psychology.
Beginning in 1991, can you advise the court exactly what it was that you developed through the company? And it wasn't called TrueScope back then, was it?
No, it was, initially it was called Universal Press Clipping.
All right, so his background, he began broadcasting monitoring since 15 years old. His family did it. He's a college grad, and then he started doing media analysis, qualitative media analysis. He has a degree in radio, TV, and a minor in psychology. Now they're talking about 1991, something that he developed.
Bureau, founded in 1908. In 1998, I changed the company name to Universal Information Services, and then in January of 2023, I merged the company with a technology firm out of Australia.
Wait, he said 1991, but I think the guy said 1998. I don't know.
By the name of TrueScope, taking on the name TrueScope in that month.
Can you tell the court a little bit about your other qualifications in the field of media intelligence and media analysis?
Sure. As you might imagine, a person who is born into it and grows up from a young age in it, I've held all the leadership roles in all of our trade associations, which includes IABM, which was the International Association of Broadcast Monitors, NDS, which was the News Data Services Cooperative, the NACG.
Tales from the Crypt. Is that the TV show where the guy like comes out in the very beginning? He's all like crusty looking and I feel like I remember seeing that on Fox or something. Fox 25.
PCS, NACPCS, National it's press clipping. It was an early press clipping conference. I can't remember the exact acronym right now. But it was a North American Conference of Press Clipping Services. There we go. My apologies, Your Honor. Let's see, after that...
All right, let me jump around right here.
Now, in addition to that, have you yourself also developed software that is now used in the industry?
Yeah, in the 90s, I had two primary developments. One, in 1995, developed the methodology for comparative media analysis, which was transparent, allowed you to see all the data behind the figures and the inferences, and allowed you to compare one entity against another. In the commercial realm, it might be a market, say Chicago, for example, that has a multitude of healthcare systems. It would allow one healthcare system to track how they're performing, both in terms of volume of media mentions, impact, reach, and then the qualitative side, primary message points where they either are leading or trailing their competitors. I also developed the first software and database and hardware solution that allow you to track multiple TV stations. The closed captioning that's embedded in broadcast programming. I had a program written where I could extract multiple channels, 4 channels simultaneously, all to a single database. And that was the first instance of indexing broadcast media, which has come in handy when people try to trademark and patent that process. Having that prior art has helped me.
Have you previously testified as an expert in media intelligence and analysis?
All right, so just wrapping up his background here. In the 90s, he developed software. One was a methodology of comparative media analysis. He would compare one entity against another. For example, healthcare systems, how performing in both media mentions, in impact, and in reach, whether or not they're leading or trailing, he said. And then he developed the first software/database for tracking TV stations. He mentioned something about closed captioning, and then he would extract them from multiple channels.
I have.
Approximately how many times?
I think this will be my 5th formal testimony. We've done consulting for attorneys all along where they simply receive the data. But in terms of testimony, similar to...
All right, he's testified 5 times before, and I'm assuming Koberger would have been one of the 5. All right, so they are going to bring him in as the expert. And let's have him talk about this case. Let me scroll down. Okay, murder of Dan Markel.
Correct.
That is correct.
Now, on a factual level, how closely have you followed the murder of Dan Markel in the state of Florida versus Donna Adelson?
I have not followed it at all. Personally, as a standard operating procedure, I tend to avoid news such as that on the principle that we may have a client that we serve in this capacity. Certainly once engaged by a client to evaluate a specific case, I will call it, I tune out completely and avoid all media related to it. Just on the outside chance, I might see something that subconsciously would influence my opinion. Now, anytime you frame something, for example, you're looking at me right now and you're framing.
Okay, so he says he has not followed this case personally, but maybe he's accidentally seen something. Let me just see what parts I can skip. Okay, what else?
Mr. Zelman, is I review all the data with the team and I ask for additional things that I want to see. It could be volume of lynches over time or something else. So I don't look at the data prior to the nearly final reports, and then I say, okay, is there something missing in this situation?
All right, so he's got an Excel sheet. I wonder if we can see it. I can see a little bit of it on the attorney's laptop on the right side. Hey, Moondog, how are you doing today? Hello. Hi, Karango. Hello, hello. Donna's clearly trying to sell the poor old woman look. Pardon my murder trial because I'm old with an ear infection. And I think in one of the videos that I covered recently, I said that she had sciatica. I think is it sciatica or multiple sclerosis? No, sciatica, right? Yeah, I think she had like sciatica.
And ask for them to produce that.
All right, spreadsheet. What do we got? Charlie Adelson and Donna, an inquiry.
Would be a query for either Donna Adelson or Charlie Adelson. Potentially would include any variations on their name that would then be reviewed to make sure it's the correct Charlie or Donna Adelson. Each row on this.
Yeah, I have a friend that has sciatica. It sounds like it really sucks. Actually, I have another friend that thinks he has sciatica too. He's been wearing like a back brace thing.
Spreadsheet then represents a single article or story or unit of reporting.
All right, so he did an inquiry for Donna Adelson, Charlie Adelson, and then possible typos of those names, and he's going to go back as far as 2014, and that's when Dan Markel was murdered.
Some comparative analysis, I know, but overall, I believe we went as far back as 2014 to 2025 for some of the data, and then we also did a June 2023 to May 2024 sample analysis.
And this tab indicates there were 233 mentions of Donna or Charlie Adelson during that time period, correct?
That's exactly correct. 233 rows, but the first row would be headers.
And then, can you tell the court what this second tab is?
That would be another query, a new query, that's not looking specifically for either Donna or Charlie Adelson, but additional names associated with this case that you or the client would ask us to look at either for comparison purposes or whatever they need. We generally don't offer legal advice on what you need for your situation, but the advice we give is how we've done.
They also did a search for the co-conspirators. So Catherine McBanois, there was Garcia, which is the hitman, Rivera, also the hitman as well. They're going to talk about all the mentions in the media. They also did queries of Dan Markel, looked at broadcasts, looked at web content as well. They're basically looking over the Excel spreadsheet that he has and just breaking it down for the judge, I guess, each of the categories. Okay, January 18th, what's going on here?
On January 8th, 2014, at 5:34 p.m.
Was it January or was it August?
Oh, thank you. Because our technology is built in Australia, our dates are day, month, year.
All right, so the dates are janky because they're used to Australia format. All right, how many articles in 20, was it? How many articles and mentions?
How many articles or broadcasts?
2,818.
Hi, Sarah. How are you doing today? Sarah says I'm late to the party. Have I missed anything noteworthy? So we are having a motion for a change of venue filed by Donna's team, and they have an expert that they hired that was also an expert in Brian Koberger's case as well. And I think this might be the same expert who testified before Brian Koberger's trial was changed from Latah County to Ada County. So I figured maybe her expert was like, hey, this expert testified. It worked for Brian Koberger. Let's try it for Donna as well. So he's going to talk about how the potential jury pool that is in the local area right now might be potentially tainted, and Donna Adelson won't have a fair trial. I am assuming that's where it's going.
And then what is this next
Oh, Lauren, say hi to the doggos for me.
tab represent?
So this is going to be what we call internally the roll-up of the quantitative data related
lady.
to different views. So in this case, we're looking at cities or potential designated market areas. We include what county they reside in, and then we calculate, and the system tabulates the exact amount that each of those cities and or counties, the volume of media mentions. So that would be the number of stories or articles or web pages within that geographic area. Column D would indicate the total audience. People may be more familiar with the Nielsen ratings. That's where those audience figures come from. Sometimes you'll see them referred to as impressions. That often is a more generic term that can apply.
So they can see where the impressions are coming from. These are people that are viewing the articles or the broadcasts. They could see by the location, the county that they reside in, the cities and all that.
Other media types. But in terms of broadcast, that would be the Nielsen audience rating based on their methodology and their standard for establishing how many people have an opportunity to view that story in a specific geographic region.
And so, would it be accurate to say that your team looked at the total amount of articles and broadcasts that were identified in the previous tabs, and then sorted them based on market area?
That is correct.
And the total number of broadcasts or articles that were published and TrueScope was able to collect, what was the total for Leon County?
2,371.
And then where did you get the total number of adults in Leon County from?
That would be from the most recent census numbers from the government. So that's the, obviously, census.gov has that data. We use that data to pull the most accurate count as each census is updated.
And can you explain to the
Alright,
court,
so let's talk about this first slide.
what does this first slide represent?
It's pretty small.
Oh, Blade! What a cutie name! But it says hi to Shiro! I appreciate you streaming today. Got all hands on deck in our living room working on getting our wedding invites done. Oh, nice! Stacey and Royce are joining in for my fave streams. Lol! Oh my goodness. How many wedding invites do you have to make? Good luck, good luck. That sounds fun.
On my screen. One moment. Similar to what we saw on the previous exhibit, this is the media coverage for nearly an 11-year period by county, from designated counties in Florida.
And what counties, so Leon County, this is the 376 opportunities to be seen, or potential impressions that we discussed previously.
Oh, you're so lucky to have a calligrapher. My friend is a calligrapher as well, and oh my gosh, she does such good penmanship. It's so good. I want to learn. It looks really tough.
What other counties did you focus on, and we'll get to that in the next exhibit, but with respect to Miami-Dade County, what were the number of opportunities to be seen for residents adult jury-eligible residents in Miami-Dade County?
2.
Let's go to the next slide. What does this represent?
That's the
Man, I wish we could see the slides. I can't really see anything.
volume of media coverage by media type. Excuse me. This is where we simply break down the overall media coverage that we're analyzing for the client to see which media types were most predominant. This often comes into consideration when I'm looking at active versus passive media types. It can also be used to make inferences based on journalistic credibility versus media reporting. Just to elaborate, believe it or not, despite what we often see in political rhetoric, there are journalistic standards that professional journalists try to adhere to when reporting, as opposed to.
So he was looking at the media coverage in the past 11 years by county in Florida. For Leon County, there were 376 opportunities for a potential jury pool to see coverage about this case. I think that's what it means. And then for Miami-Dade County, the opportunities were 2.
To a person who might be creating media, a talk show, more of an opinion-based show, can have some greater latitude than a journalist might take with a story. But in this case, you can see TV news was the predominant, by far the predominant media type, followed by print media, with web and radio trailing behind.
Now, what is the purpose of this next slide, slide 4?
So it seems like most of these were over TV news were the predominant type of media coverage, and then he said next was print media, which I'm assuming is like also like online, digital, not just like magazines, right?
That is what I would call more of a control analysis, a simple control analysis to look at what would an average news story in the same area generate in terms of, say, impressions, or we look at several factors, total volume, how long it takes for that story to decay. Invariably, what it's going to show you is
All right, I'm going to go and jump over to engagement, and he's going to talk about the sensitization. Where is it? Okay, car crash. Let's see what they say about that.
appeared in the media about the car crash. Let's see, six stories were reported on that topic, generating just over 935,000 opportunities to be seen. And I'm just reading at the bottom, the story appeared over a 3-day span in a population of nearly 160,000 residents based on census data. And then we apply, I believe either in Florida or in your county, the jury eligible age is 18. And so we calculate only those over that age in our viewing population.
And so with that calculation, the jury eligible resident had 6 opportunities to see one of these stories based on.
That's correct.
And finally, with this exhibit, hold on, let's see. With this exhibit, what is the total number of juror eligible individuals according to census data in Miami-Dade County?
It was over 2 million in Miami-Dade.
Versus how many in Leon County?
Just under 160,000.
Before you continue, when you say census data, this is the 2020 census number that you're using as a part of
It
your...
would be the most recent census data.
Please continue.
2024?
I'm going to pull up exhibit 3. I'll try to make it bigger for you.
So we're kind of just learning the foundation of what he does. I kind of want him to jump to more about this case. Media exposure in Florida. Leon County, Miami-Dade. All right, let's jump over here.
The blue line would be volume of stories in Leon County versus volume of stories in Miami-Dade.
Hi, Kat. How are you doing today? Hello, hello. Donna wants to change of venue. She has an expert to argue that right now. This is the same expert apparently from Brian Koberger's team.
And how many, what was the volume of story, and again, it's that same 1 year time frame, June of 23 to May of 24, what was the volume of stories in Leon County?
283.
And what was the volume of stories in Miami-Dade County?
It was about exactly 60 less, 223.
Oh, okay. Here it is.
Now, over the lifespan of this investigation, July of 2014 to present, based on your analysis, do you have an opinion on how the span of time has impacted the media coverage in the case?
Yeah, I can certainly provide my opinion. In my experience, it shows a topic of interest to the media where the story has what, has, you may have heard the phrase, the story has legs. It has captured the interest of the media over time. Some stories, such as a car crash, at this point in time, it would be nearly impossible to find anyone in the county where a car crash occurred that could remember any details of that story. This is indicating repetition over time and volume of impressions over time are high. So what I would start thinking is I expect to see in the numbers a higher level of retention based on saturation of an average citizen in a geographic area. So this is, in my work, this is what I start looking at and building what my expectation should be coming in the downstream data. And if I don't see it, then I rerun it to see if we made a mistake anywhere, or if there's a contributing factor to why a story stopped. But this is to summarize, this is a very typical shape and volume of impressions for a story that captures the interest of the media over time at a high level, too.
And so I think that's a good segue into the math of memory that we discussed.
Oh, should we get into the math of it? Okay, so again, from July 2014, which is when Dan Markel was murdered, to the present, he said that that is a span of time that impacted media coverage of this case. And because this, I guess they didn't catch Donna ASAP, and this story has been in the news for over 11 years. He talks about the story having legs, which is I guess a phrase. I've never really heard of that before. Capture the interest in media over time. And he talks about how the repetition and volume impression are high. And you would expect a higher level of saturation of average citizen in that geographic area. Now, I think he was just like using the car crash stories as an example. And then now they're getting to the math of it, which I'm like, do we want to get into the math of it? Let's try a little bit. Let's see. Let's get a little taste of it. Really? Breaking news. Apparently, George just got sent home for the Karen Reed case. No verdict so far. Oh, wow. Okay. Coming back again for day 3 tomorrow. Do you know what time they're coming in for verdict? Or sorry, for deliberation? I'm doing well. How about you? How's it been, lady? How's it going over there? All right, let's see. The math.
Valid results. The more a person is estimated to be exposed to a story, the longer they'll retain up to 80% of the details of a story.
The person you're referring to with this is someone of average intellect with no defects.
Right. Again, it's when we say jury-eligible population.
Really? Retain 80% of details of the story? I don't know. I feel like the number is really high. 80%? Okay.
That doesn't account for anyone who might be exempted for a reason other than age.
Please continue.
Number of impressions and opportunities to be seen. How does that factor into the ability of somebody to retain that information?
In my mind, it's fascinating how logarithmically your potential to retain information goes up once you surpass seeing the story just a couple times.
Yeah, that makes sense. You see something over and over again. At some point, you start retaining it more and more because you're familiar with the content.
So what we do is we apply the number so we take the total number of media mentions or articles or stories, the coverage, divided into the jury-eligible pool to derive the total number of opportunities for this story to be seen by a jury-eligible person in that county. Then we can put that number into this formula and estimate, statistically, I might say, I need to preface that with statistically, how long the average person of average intellect could retain up to 80% of detail on a story. How many, in terms of years?
Okay, and based on training experience, and when somebody has 376 opportunities to see an article or broadcast or podcast, how long do they retain that information?
If it's 336 exposures, I can't even estimate. I'd have to run the math again. And I can tell you, for example, if a person's exposed once, that retention to interpret the story would be 3.3 minutes. And I've provided, I think you have that chart up as I provided it. You can see how it extends once you get up above 10. Statistically, it exceeds the lifetime of a human.
So, breaking this down, with the opportunities to be seen that we have in this case, for an individual jury eligible of average intellect, they're going to be able to retain that information for their entire life.
Yes. And that's based on the resultant figure that in Leon County, the average jury eligible person was exposed 26 times.
Just a moment, Your Honor.
Go ahead.
Donna, I see you. I see you, Donna. Okay, I got distracted. Let me catch up in the captions or in the transcript. For the story to be seen. Story to be seen. It's 80%. Average intellect, okay. And he mentioned 336 exposures, which was mentioned in the beginning. Exposures.
Now, Mr. Murphy, going back to the data that you were able to collect, you had mentioned earlier.
So he's saying the more you're exposed to the story, the more you retain it, and an average person of average intelligence would retain about 80% of the details of the story. I don't know if that's like after how many times you see the story repetitively. And then he talks about the mathing of how they do it, and then they were able to calculate too, possibly 336 exposures to, I guess, Donna Adelson and her story in the span of, 11 years.
That TrueScope has the ability to collect and analyze podcasts.
Oh yeah, do we know where Donna wanted us to have her trial moved to?
Information and social media. Were you able to do that in this case?
To my knowledge, no. We were not able to include podcasts specifically in this analysis.
And why? And can you tell the court why that is?
There's two functional reasons. One, having access to the podcasts and retaining that data, we need to have a client engaged. If we don't have a client engaged, we're generally, let me start over. When we engage a client, we're tracking and going forward in most cases. With some media types, we retain that content and we can do back searching. In the case of podcasts, it's a newer medium. We don't have the ability to do back searching into the same time frame with podcasts. So I think that was at least one reason why we excluded it from the data.
And what about social media? Were you able to include looking backwards at social media?
Similar situation. Social media requires that we register topics. That's an internal phrase where we, in a sense, put the topic into the social network of, let's say, Instagram, for example, so that it can return results related to that topic through the API that connects us. Since we didn't have the engagement with your law firm in 2011, none of that had been registered, so we statistically excluded that media type. One reason. That would be my primary reason.
Just a moment, Your Honor.
Okay, so podcast, social media not included.
So, Mr. Murphy, since TrueScope
All
was
right, we're about like almost halfway there, guys.
not able, TrueScope in this case was retained in January of 2025, correct?
Correct.
She wants to go to Miami. Oh boy, maybe because she's more prominent and she knows people in Miami. I mean, they do have a very successful dental practice.
And so what you're saying about the social media and podcasts is because you weren't retained, you weren't able to go back in time to collect the data from social media and podcasts.
That is correct.
If
Go ahead. I'm sorry.
if you had been able to obtain that information, do you have, are you able to offer an opinion as to how that would have impacted your conclusions about total number of potential impressions, or as the court was asking earlier about active engagement?
Yeah, so there's a couple specific, I would say, factual opinions I can share. One, neither of those media types are able to be geographically pinned down. A podcast can occur anywhere, but be specific to another region. So it makes assigning it to a geographic region nearly impossible in most cases. So that's one reason. And I apologize. Can you repeat the question, because I got too deep in my first answer.
So I was asking how, if you could offer any conclusions as to
Yeah, guys, wish Lady Acid a very happy early birthday. Happy early birthday. It's your birthday week, birthday month, birthday year, I guess. Let's just keep on going. Apparently, the court proceedings in Karen retrial will resume at 9 a.m. local time, which means 6. Yeah, that's early. But 9, and then they've been deliberating until, wait, what, 3:30? Now I'm going to 4:30? What? Wait, no. Oh, no, that is 4:30, right? 3, 1, 2, 3. No, it's 3:30. Wait, am I tripping? Yeah, it is. Oh, man. Because I think they wanted to go home early last time, too, at 3:30. Like, no, stay till 5. That's like, you know, some more time that you could be deliberating.
how, if you'd been able to obtain that information, how it would factor into your ultimate conclusions?
So the geographic issue is one. What it would have done is it would have simply increased the volume across the board. It would have been treated more like national media exposure. And let's just use a simple number of 100. Let's say if there were 100 podcasts, it has equal potential to be seen in any of these counties or heard, as the case may be. And social media is the same way. It would have an equal opportunity to be seen in any county, not in Florida, but globally. So statistically, it would simply increase the values across the board by the same number. You would apply an N factor to it, and it wouldn't change the charting of impact or opportunities to be seen. It would increase the opportunities to be seen in each county, but by an equal amount, so the outcome wouldn't change, if that makes sense.
We usually get dinner and hang out if the weather's nice. We might hike. Oh, that sounds so fun. I'm hoping that the weather goes back down in LA because it was like 90s this past weekend. But there's this really cool hike that I want to do that's like really dog friendly and kid friendly. It's like a super chill hike, but there's waters in it. Oh gosh. But I'm just waiting for the temperatures to go down because I don't want to go when it's like super hot, you know, and then Cheryl's going to fucking hate it. We need like the 50s and 60s degree weather again. That'll be nice. Like cloudy, you know. Oh.
That makes sense. And I can rephrase that if it was confusing.
I understood what you meant. I don't know if the judge would like a different explanation.
Make it as simple as possible.
Can you?
The water would rise equally in every county, and so it would provide no one an additional bump or decrease over another. It would just be a wash.
So in other words, if you had been able to factor in the data from podcasts and social media, the numbers, whatever that number is, would have applied equally for Leon County and Miami-Dade County.
Right, it wouldn't change the outcome of the analysis. It would simply increase the numbers for all of them equally.
Nothing further, Your Honor.
Cross-examination? Does that microphone work?
I think so, Judge.
I can hear it.
Mr. Murphy, can you explain your fee schedule associated with your work on this case?
I would have to check with my accounting. Our CFO would have that detail. We generally, I can speak generally to our fee schedule. There's a monthly subscription cost for us to monitor the data. And then in addition to that, if a client takes the opportunity to have us analyze their data, there's an additional fee for media analysis. So in this case, there would be two components, the media monitoring and the media analysis. And then on top of that, if myself or one of our team members is asked to provide testimony like this, there's an additional fee for my time or Shell's time.
Okay, can you give us a ballpark for what the cost would be for work that you've, like what you've done so far in this case?
Sure, a normal subscription to a monthly subscription of this type, and if I'm charging the client more, I hope that's not the case, but it generally runs around $1,500 a month for media monitoring. Analysis can often add another $1,000 or $1,500 a month to that cost. And then my fee, if I'm in person on site, it includes travel expenses, and then if it's just a one-day engagement, $10,000. If it's a virtual situation like this, my fee is $4,000.
Okay.
Wait, travel expenses, 1 day, 10K? Wait, what? All right, so his fees, $1,500 a month for the media monitoring. And if you want to add analysis on top of that, that's an additional $1,000 a month. And then he mentioned something about like, if it's just 1 day travel expenses, engagement, 10K. If it's virtual, then 4K. Holy shit. Damn.
Do you know how many potential
money.
jurors have actually viewed content related to this case?
No one can know that number for certain. So I think what we're looking at is possibility. Your question revolves around possibility versus probability. We're working with probability and statistics. When you want to say, I'm sorry, I answered your question. I won't go further until you ask me.
So the answer is no, we don't know how many potential jurors have actually viewed. We're basing it on averages and probabilities.
Correct.
Okay, and so is there a way that we could find out if an individual potential juror had viewed content related to this case?
I believe that's part of what would be done in the jury selection.
And could we also ask the juror, how long did you view the item? How much of it did you retain?
That's right. Yeah, in Brian Koberger's case, they did do phone surveys where they would call and then do their surveying.
Questions like that could be asked at jury selection, is that right?
The Adelson dental practice could go with a new slogan, smile like you're innocent.
Any questions could be asked. Then we get into the psychology, the behavioral psychology side from my perspective. What's the probability? And in my case, I'll only be speaking to probability because space jump can fall on the courthouse and change everything. So I don't deal in possibilities, but the probability is what we presented in the numbers. I'll leave it at that.
Okay. Do you have any data or probabilities about what percentage of potential jurors have formed a fixed or definite opinion about the guilt or innocence of this defendant?
That's a complex question, which I would not have.
In your affidavit that you provided to the court in this case, 3 prior hearings were cited. I know you said 4 previous hearings you've testified in, I think. Is that right?
Including this one.
Okay. So 3 prior, and how many of those hearings was the change of venue granted?
In the two earliest ones,
Sorry, I was just catching up. Okay, complex question. Okay. In the affidavit you provided the court in this case, 3 prior hearings were cited. I know you said 4 previous hearings you testified in, including this one. Okay, so 3 prior. How many of those hearings was a change of venue granted? All right.
Testified in, I think. Right, is that right?
including this one.
Okay, so 3 prior, and how many of those hearings was the change of venue granted?
In the 2 earliest ones, those,
I mean, Koberger would be 1, right? Because I'm assuming that's the expert that testified, and that's why they moved from Latah to Ada.
I believe one was moved from Sarpy County to Douglas County. That was in the 90s, I believe. I don't believe, I think so, different circumstances impacted, I'll call it the boyfriend-girlfriend murder. I think, I believe the evidence was overwhelming and a deal was made before it went to trial or something. So I'd have to look back on that. In the most recent case, which is just about 10 months ago, that venue was changed.
So in the Katanat,
Oh, 10 months ago. Okay. 10 months ago, so I'm assuming that's maybe Koberger?
murder cited in paragraph 14 of the defendant's motion, that case resulted in a plea, right?
That's my recollection. I don't have that information in front of me at this point.
So that venue motion was not ruled upon because case resolved. Does that sound right?
That's my recollection.
Okay, and in
She got her
Nebraska v.
research.
Christopher Edwards cited in paragraph 15 of the defendant's motion, that motion for venue change was actually denied, isn't that correct?
That is correct.
Okay, and so we're just dealing with the Idaho case. Is that the case that we're probably all familiar with, where 4 college students were slain back in 2022, I think?
Yeah, that's
You're wrong about
the most recent one. But there's a little bit of an apples to oranges in the one where the venue wasn't changed. I was only asked to present on a report of media coverage. It wasn't a statistical analysis like this at this depth.
Okay,
This is-
and in the
yes.
Idaho case where the venue was changed, is that the same jurisdiction that's mentioned in your data compared to the data you prepared in our case?
I apologize, I don't quite understand the question.
When we see the map of Idaho in the exhibits that we just reviewed, is that referring to that case that occurred in Moscow, Idaho at the University of Idaho?
That's correct.
Okay, and in that case, the judge did change the venue to Boise, correct?
Correct. Ada County.
And would you agree that the population in that county of Idaho where the case occurred was significantly smaller than the population we have here in Tallahassee?
That is correct.
Okay, and in fact, in the motion that the court granted the venue change in that case, the court cited insufficient space in the courthouse, insufficient staff, and insufficient security.
One moment.
May I finish my question before there's an objection, Judge?
Please finish your question.
In that case, isn't it true that the judge, in granting the motion for the venue change, cited insufficient space in the courthouse, insufficient staff, and insufficient security, AKA deputies, to accommodate the trial of that case?
What is your objection?
Outside the scope.
It's in
I
his
believe part of his
affidavit, Judge.
testimony has been concerning his work in Idaho, is it not?
Yes, Your Honor, but we did not get into whether or not the venue motion in that case had been granted or the reasons for that in his testimony or in his affidavit.
But it's important to know if it was granted because of his research or if it was something else. Well, this is getting so interesting. Okay, so just dialing back just a tiny bit. So Georgia Kappelman, I'm assuming that's the one who's speaking, not because that sounds like Georgia Kappelman, right? Not Sarah Dugan, which I think is her name. Georgia Kappelman's doing the cross-examination, and she's going through his affidavit right now, and basically other cases that he's worked on. And she was like, okay, well, you worked on 3 prior hearings. How many of those hearings did you have a change of venue granted? He cited one from the 90s. There was another one with a girlfriend-boyfriend murder trial, but because I guess the evidence was maybe overwhelming, they made a deal, and the case was resolved. And then he's talking about 10 months ago with the Koberger case. Now, she's poking in that one because she's saying that, like, well, it seems like that population in Idaho is way less than the population in Tallahassee. And then just now she talked about the court cited insufficient space, staff, and security to accommodate the trial for the Idaho 4 murder trial. So.
As to the subject matter, I will permit the question. If you are capable of answering the question, Mr. Murphy, please do so if you have knowledge.
I can only answer to the portion I have knowledge on, and I believe it was cited that the testimony of the media exposure was also a contributing factor, but I'm not an attorney.
Yeah, I think you're right about that. My question is, there were other factors in play. You may know that or you may not. Are you aware of that?
That's out of my purview and role in this case.
That's not my question. My question is, do you know that that was in the order or not?
I will say no.
Okay. And we have had related cases related to this case tried here in Tallahassee. Are you?
No beach house for Donna. I mean, we'll see. The judge reserved his ruling, so we're not gonna find out right now. But I'm gonna keep refreshing to see what the judge decides. I feel like he decides pretty quickly. Hey, Michael, what's going on with the green chili chicken enchiladas? Did you bring some for the rest of us? We're starving. I'm hungry, actually. Hello, hello. How are we doing today? How are we going to keep that name forever? That's what I want to know. The state is saying expert stats has never resulted in a venue change. Yeah, that's what she's attacking. How's the Adelson case going? Well, we were hoping for her to have a trial right now, but there's been a lot of stuff happening in Donna's, like tiny little hiccups, here and there. Just a lot of like little tiny things. So we're trying to see if we're going to continue to have the trial in 2 months in August.
Are you aware of that?
I would assume you've tried cases in Tallahassee.
But co-defendants related to this case that we're here about have been tried here in Tallahassee. Are you aware of that?
I am.
Okay, thank you. In the spreadsheet, this was one, I think it was in Exhibit 1, Tab 1, where Donna Adelson and Charlie Adelson appearances in the media.
Oh, that's right. So we can look at Charlie's trial, Catherine McManus' trial, and then the other two, the Hitman's trial as well, to see how hard it was for them to find a jury.
Are lumped together. Are you familiar with what I'm referencing?
Like, even though with Donna, more time has passed technically, but Charlie's happened, was like 2-3 years ago. So I guess the defense can argue that, like, oh, hey, it's been 2 to 3 years since we did a jury survey. And so since then, there could have been more media coverage, blah, 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 blah. So I guess they can do another research thing where they look at the time from Charlie's trial to now to see if the jury pool became even more potentially tainted because of their knowledge about this case. Right? Request for a venue change, a weighted backdoor to a new judge motion. Yeah, so they put it in motion for a new judge, I think a couple months back, and it was like initially filed under sealed, and then they unsealed it. But yeah, it's basically maybe a way to circumvent that.
Is it the spreadsheet?
Yes.
Getting creative here.
Yeah.
Why were Donna Adelson and Charlie Adelson lumped together for purposes of that presentation?
I would have to speak with the client and the media monitoring team to see why that query was built that way.
What? Go get the media monitoring team in here. We want to hear from them.
That would be my answer.
Were the numbers ever run for Donna Adelson alone?
I'm sure they were. In the course of testing queries, we run them many different ways. Ultimately,
No?
we arrive at a query that best captures the media exposure specific to what the parameters are around the case our client has asked us to be engaged on.
What?
Okay,
Did
so
you answer
I think that kind of gets
Did you answer the question? Okay, sorry. She's.
The client has asked us to be engaged on.
okay. So I think that kind of gets to my next question. Who made the decision to lump Charlie in with Donna in the data included on Defense Exhibit
Defense
1?
team?
I would say, I don't know. It would be a collaborative discussion between the client and our analysis team and our search strategist.
Okay, but ultimately, if you have data for Donna alone and data for Charlie and Donna together, who's going to decide what shows up in Defense Exhibit 1? You?
Wait, so, okay, so I'm assuming he's like the owner of this company. If he wasn't the actual person who ran these inquiries himself, why not have them testify, I guess? Right? Because she's asking, like, okay, well, why did you guys decide to lump Donna and Charlie together in your inquiry? I'm not too sure. I need to ask, the media monitoring team. And then it's like, well, who made the decision? It's like, I don't know. It's either the client or the research strategist. Wouldn't it be better to have the person who did the actual work on this to be testifying about it? Or is that like too low level of a position? And then I don't know, because I feel like that would be in the reports, no, or something like that. Lauren, hi Lauren. Lauren, thank you so much for joining the membership, guys. Please welcome Lauren. Hello, hello. New member, enjoy your emotes and welcome. Thank you so much for the support. I appreciate it. Thank you so much, Lauren. Hi, Sheena. How are you doing today? How was your weekend? Hello, hello.
Or the client?
It's going to be
The numbers probably look better for Donna alone. Yo, let's get Charlie up in here too.
a combination. We would probably offer a recommendation since in these cases, either name is probably not in the news for another issue, and we often would search to see if, I'll say, John Smith, if he's involved with the case as a alleged conspirator or whatever, also has a car dealership that frequently advertises that mentions his name. We'll check to see if there's other contributing stories. If there's not, then we'll make a determination that if it would be statistically impossible to mention Donna Adelson without mentioning Charlie Adelson, we'll run the names together because the query is functionally one subject. Now, if either party in that query starts to exhibit a volume of content on their own and not in relation to the other party, we would separate that and at least counsel our client that we should run this separately.
Okay, so are you able to tell?
But he still doesn't know. He's just saying that what could have possibly happened. Let all jury members be Vietnamese. So Donna feels like she's in Vietnam and has a chance. Shall we serve pho for lunch as well? Oh, Lauren, thank you so much. Thank you so much for the 2. No, thank you, thank you. Well, now that Michael's here, fuck pho. I kind of want some green chili chicken enchiladas now.
The court how many of those articles that represent Donna and Charlie together, in how many of those does Charlie's name only appear in without Donna? So I'm not really.
Yeah, that's actually really weird too. Why not just do a separate inquiry for Charlie and Donna? Because of course the state's going to pick at it. The state's basically is going to say, hey, did you lump Charlie and Donna together to get a bigger number? Or bigger number? Larger number? Larger number?
Really, after I asked the question incorrectly, let me start over.
Start over.
I asked how many for Donna alone, but what I'm really interested in is how many does Donna's name appear in, period.
That would be done with you could do a simple search in the spreadsheet and search not for a name, Charlie, or only for Donna, and see how many of those 2,000 plus stories only mention one name.
Is that something you could do for us
Right now?
or that's something that takes time and analysis to perform?
It would take, I wouldn't want to do it live
Isn't it a spreadsheet? Can't you filter that?
on TV. I want to make sure we followed our methodology and protocol
Okay.
and have 2 sets of eyes check it.
Okay.
Right. So you don't have that data to provide to us right now as far as how many does Donna's name appear in?
The data's there, we would just have to, or someone on your side or another could sort it.
Okay.
It seems easy,
When
right?
we're talking about opportunities to see a particular article or content, does that presume that all Leon residents actually have the same likelihood of seeing the content?
They all have an equal probability of being able to see the content.
Hey, I get it. Performance issue, that's a tough one too. Okay, I would probably struggle with that as well if I were to do it live. But I don't know if it's my bread and butter and, I'm like a genius at my Excel spreadsheet that I created. It's like, you could probably just do it live, just like sort it really quick, right? I don't know. He made it sound like it was really easy that the prosecutor could just do it themselves. Oh, hi, Caitlin. Hey, Corky, how are you? I'm doing good. What's going on? I'm starving right now, though. I'm hungry. We're talking about food in the chat right now. I'm like, guys, I'm starving. It's like, I'm being hyperbolic. I'm not starving, but I am getting a little bit hungry.
Okay, but actual views could be consumed repeatedly by one viewer and not at all by another, correct?
That's a possibility.
All right, so if you're saying I had 376 opportunities to see this content, it's possible that I as an individual, could have actually not seen any of it.
That is a possibility.
And it's 376 total opportunities over how many years?
It's giving, he knows the numbers are different, but doesn't want to expose it right now on the stand. Or potentially, my client won't like it if I do it right now and expose the real number. Oh, okay, all right, let me go back. All right, so 376 opportunities. All right, are they like, okay, I'm going to speed up a tiny bit.
Have the same likelihood of seeing the content?
They all have an equal probability of being able to see the content.
Okay, but actual views could be consumed repeatedly by one viewer and not at all by another, correct?
That's a possibility.
All right, so if you're saying,
Oh, this bun, nothing special at all. There are some people that do like the ponytail and they take a piece of hair and they wrap it and all that stuff. No, it's just how a normal bun is just made. There's absolutely nothing special about it. I will say though, I think what really makes a bun stand out is to have some little messy pieces of hair. Like just pull out just a tiny bit here, maybe like a little bit up here, depending on like your face shape or something like that. But I think it looks more messier and more effortless when you have like strands of hair just like frizzing out a little bit. So that's my tip. But the bun itself is nothing special. I can't do the special bun because if my head is too tight, I get a headache. So it's usually pretty loose and like, I don't know, it's just chilling there. It's like a little ball sack, just hanging up there.
I had 370 by one viewer and not at all by another, correct?
That's a possibility.
All right, so if you're saying I had 376 opportunities to see this content, it's possible that I, as an individual, could have actually not seen any of it.
That is a possibility.
And it's 376 total opportunities over how many years?
11.
I believe about 11.
Okay. And so I think in your math of memory, we can agree that the passage of time in general does not serve our memory well. Can we agree with that?
That is true.
Okay.
That's true. Yeah, 11 years. You could forget some of the details. Okay, I can show you how to do it real quick. It's nothing special. I promise you. It's nothing special. All right. So, I don't know. It's like messy. See how there's like, it's like lumps here? I don't know. I just grab it like this. Do something like that. I don't know. It's just normal. I don't know. It's just like tie your hair. And then it's like small, right? And then you just kind of just like spread it out a little bit, and then just loosen it up. Just move it around. I feel like I'm performing right now, live. Being put on the spot here. There we go. I was just telling you guys I have performance issues. Something like that, Oh, God. Now there's that little thing dingling there. Yeah, it's like something like that. There you go. That's all I got for you.
So I would need to ask a particular juror, how long ago did you see the content and how much do you remember from the content to really know what that juror remembers, right?
To know what an individual knows or can reveal, that would be correct.
How many opportunities does the average person, adult, have in an average day to have an impression from any content? And I guess I'm thinking of, waking up, picking up my phone, scrolling this morning, turning on the news, riding to work, listening to a streaming service.
Good question. Good question.
On the way to work. I've already been bombarded with a bunch of opportunities, haven't I? Just today.
Yeah.
I would need to know where you live.
Okay, but in general, let's just take the folks in this room that are sitting in here now. Like, we've already had a lot of opportunities to observe content. Would you agree?
I would think so. I don't know you, so I don't know what your propensity to consume news is.
But you deal in averages, and you're telling us what the average adult has the opportunity to consume based on that data.
Right. So I think if you look at the control story for a car crash, that would give you your answer. I think it was 6 opportunities to be seen, or 4, something like that.
Right, but we're bombarded with this stuff all day, every day, is my point.
I don't see relevance to the question for me.
Oh, man. I don't know, man. This expert sounds a little bit evasive. I think anyone can understand that, hey, the moment you wake up and the moment you go to sleep, how much shit are you bombarded with, right? There's like all this stuff on social media, on the news, on the TV. Like, yes, it seems like 376 opportunities is a lot, but it could just all be washed away with all the other shit that you're bombarded with in your everyday life. So I think that's something he should be able to agree with. But he doesn't want to because maybe Donna C won't be happy. I don't know. I feel like we need, like, objectivity here. I did like the way he sounded earlier. Sounded like he knew his shit. I do not do the TikToks really, right? I like watching Instagram reels and YouTube videos, but like TikTok, like, I can't. This guy's using data from Charlie's trial 2 years ago. Was it? Nothing recent. Oh, wait, he also testified. Oh, sorry, was he also an expert in Charlie's pretrial stuff? I don't think so. No, I don't think so. What is that? Does it sound like John has 50 apples mathematics? Tell me more about this. Lauren, thank you so much for the super chat. Thank you. Is that a cup of tea? I will take the cup of tea. Thank you so much. Donna is where she belongs, behind bars. She Donna. I just can't wait when we get to the trial. I can't wait to see more Donna emails. More emails. We got to see a little bit of it in Charlie Adelson's trial.
Okay. All right, so can we agree that actual memories of an individual vary? I mean, again,
Yes.
Going back to what you were saying about I'm dealing with averages and probabilities, an individual might have differences based on their actual exposure to the content, based on their actual ability to retain information, based on their interest in the topic, based on what else is going on in their lives, their age, and lots of other factors. Would you agree with that?
I would.
You said the average person, the average Leon juror has been exposed, or at least had the opportunity to view material about this case 26 times. Is that right? Did I get that
That is
right?
correct.
Okay. And do we know how many of those 26 contain the name Donna Adelson?
All 26 stories would contain the search term. So these are 26 opportunities to see the specific story about, I believe, in this case, Donna Adelson.
Okay, but it's got Charlie lumped in with it, doesn't it?
Right,
Okay.
yes.
And based on those 26 opportunities, you talked about the math of memory and how after a certain number of exposures, a person is likely to retain some of that information up to the rest of their life. Are you able to tell us what information is likely to be retained by a juror who's had these 26 exposures?
Yeah, it's the test on models can recall 80% of the details.
Okay. And so would it surprise you to learn that previously when we've asked
Okay, so, and then you said the average person, the average Leon County juror, has been exposed or at least had the opportunity to view the material about this case 26 times. And again, that was lumping Donna Adelson and Charlie together, not just Donna. All right. Oh, she is such a master at what she does. She's so good at it.
Recall 80% of the details.
And so would it surprise you to learn that previously when we've asked jurors about this case, we get about a third that don't know anything, a third that know the headlines, and a third that have more detailed information? Does that comport with your work, or does that seem inconsistent with your work?
I'm unfamiliar with your procedure for selecting a jury.
Okay, but based on your analysis, does that sound about right, that that's what we would expect, or would you expect something different?
I can't, it's outside of my area of expertise. Jury selection, I don't do.
But you're saying they would retain 80% of the information if they had been exposed 26 times. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, I'm saying the probability of an average person in your county, I believe you're in Leon County, that would be the probability of an average person of jury selection age.
The probability of the average person of jury selection age who was in fact exposed 26 times.
Mortuary Assistant is such a fucking scary game. I love that game. There's been some new updates now. I haven't played it since though. I like that you know Mortuary Assistant. Oh boy. Hey Nicole, how are you? What's going on? It's more on YouTube, honestly. TikTok, not too much, I believe. I didn't know about her until she was trying to leave the country. She was trying to dip out.
Retaining 80% of the information.
Had the opportunity to be exposed 26 times.
Okay. But they definitely have to actually be exposed to get any of the retention that we're talking about.
Yes.
That is true.
Then we can't know that unless we ask them.
Knowing, yeah, I guess I can't. My work is in the probability of people before they enter your room. So all I can speak to is the probability of the people you might encounter during a jury selection process. I can't answer a question about who you will encounter during a jury selection process.
Right. Understood. No further questions.
Nice job. Wow.
I have a follow-up question, and then from there, the parties can follow up as they need to. Mr. Murphy, I remember when you were testifying on direct that you were stating your numbers as it relates to the probabilities rely on the taking of the last census, correct?
Yes.
In any way, do these numbers account for seasonal fluctuations or shifts?
In terms of immigrant labor or?
Well, let me be more specific. Here in Leon County, we have 3 colleges and universities, meaning when you have a freshman class coming in each year, there are now 18-year-olds who will meet, presumably, juror eligibility. In that way, for that fluctuation of persons who may be eligible jurors by statute, does your data take that into account in any way?
I can't answer that without asking a question related to your fluctuating population. If you would like me to ask that question, I can, Your Honor.
You can ask. I'm not sure if I can give you much more, but go ahead.
So, in the case of students, I have 2 children who have gone through college. Do they need to be registered voters? I don't know what the statute says.
They would have to have a driver's license that has a residency for this county. That would be at least the initial pull for coming into the juror pool.
So we would have to look at, let's say you have 20,000 students that fluctuate at the university level. How many of those have a Florida license, and a valid Florida license, and how many do not? You can probably get that statistic directly from the university of how many out-of-state students attend each year.
Very well. And would this impact what your numbers and analysis are?
So I think the answer to this question is ultimately a no, it seems.
Probably probably at a very marginal level. Once you removed the out-of-state students and those who don't drive, then you're going to be left. If we started with 20,000 and removed those who aren't registered with a valid driver's license, the number would get down to a small enough number that may impact the population of jury-eligible students by maybe 10,000. A small number that statistically wouldn't shift this, maybe by a percentage, but nothing more.
Decent answer. Okay. He says that the amount of people who are, I guess like turning, from 17 to 18 who will be eligible for the jury pool, that number may be really small anyways because they use a driver license to determine that, I guess, like the IDs. And then he's like, well, not everyone drives, and then some people are going out of state, so the number is getting smaller and smaller and smaller, and because the number might be so small, it might not statistically even shift his numbers by that much, but he's just guessing. But I think it's a pretty decent answer. What's going on with Karen Reed? Jury deliberations ended, and they'll be back tomorrow to figure out if they think what the verdict will be. Yeah. Hi, Carolina. How are you doing today? How's it going?
I believe also...
Should I charge more for parking spots since it's summertime? Oh, yeah. I live smack next to elementary school and forgot there's summer school going on right now. Who are you charging to park there? Like the teachers? No, the teachers probably have their own parking, right? Is it like the parents, I guess, dropping the kids off? The activities?
So you stated as well, you made a comparison of your data to Nielsen ratings.
Yes.
How closely would you say that mirrors? And the reason I ask this is because a Nielsen rating or maybe a radio rating, I think the science behind it, they try to make it as detailed as possible because they're trying to use that information to monetize it, correct?
Correct.
But ultimately, even with a rating of that nature, when, say, it's reported there were 200 million people that watched the Super Bowl, That doesn't tell us, did you watch every snap? Did you turn it off at halftime? Did you turn it on in the fourth quarter because it was a good game? It can't really drill down. It's just ultimately, this is the big number that watched the game.
Right, on the gross number, that's correct. But when you're starting to get into
Engagement?
the engagement level of the activity or the action within the media. So statistically, you can measure that people are more probable to watch.
My driveway is prime real estate. I know people charge for parking spots in their neighborhood for, like sometimes if you live next to like events or stadiums or something like that. I've heard of that before. Hello, Chai. Are we just going through all the fucking colors now? Why are you peel green today? Thank you so much for the sub for 71 months. Thank you so much for your support. Tier 1. Hello, hello. How are you?
Super Bowl game.
Yeah, parents, lol. There's very few spots of shade. I don't think many people like swamp ass. I can attest to that. Swamp ass sucks, especially when you're playing pickleball. The underwear, the tights be getting stuck, man. Oh my god, so fucking annoying. All right, sorry. Super Bowl game, Nielsen rating, engagement.
Are more probable to watch a tight Super Bowl game that goes into overtime. The eyeballs on that overtime are going to be higher than maybe the middle of the third quarter. So you can show some statistics around topics or activity within the content, and that's what you would see in the numbers presented as evidence of a car crash versus, say, a murder. Murders are always going to gain a higher probability of attention, are going to have a higher probability of attention than the topics we're desensitized to, like a fire, a car crash, a fender bender, a robbery, things that we see and hear every day and don't engage with because psychological behavior, we desensitize ourselves to those topics.
Very well. Any follow-ups by the state to the court's questions?
No, Your Honor.
Mr. Zellman, you may redirect us to all topics, including the court's questions.
Thank you, Your Honor. I'm going to share my screen again, Mr. Murphy. On cross-examination, the state asked you about the 26 opportunities to be seen. To be clear, Exhibit 3, during what time period did those 26 opportunities to be seen take place?
If I refer to the chart.
Let me actually share my screen.
Thank you.
Sorry.
So this is what the slide that we're showing now is the 1 year sample for comparison.
And so with
You can zoom in for the witness, Mr. Zellman, so you can see it clearly.
Thank you.
with 376 opportunities to be seen per person, what is that time period?
So that's July 2014 to January 2025. That would constitute what we know as the first story. The first story we sometimes either call the alpha clip, the alpha story, or the breaking news story. It should constitute that through the cutoff date in January 2025. In order to do an analysis, we have to have a specific starting and a specific end.
So during that roughly 10 and a half year period, there were 376 opportunities to be seen
In Leon County.
in Leon County. And then
Per person.
And since then,
Why are we going over this again? It's not like we're going over it again for the jury. The judge probably understands. So I feel like we don't have to hash out what was already said on direct and then cross-examination.
January, that number has remained constant or has it increased?
If there's been any media coverage, which we know there has been, then that number has gone up. But since we are presenting that in the analysis, I won't speak to how much. But I stated earlier, we are on track to exceed 2024 total opportunities to be seen based on media coverage and impressions.
Let me go back to that exhibit.
And when I say we, I'm referring to the media monitoring side of TrueScope.
So going back to that slide on Exhibit 3, this is where you're indicating that 2025 is on track to exceed 2024.
Correct.
And so 2024 had over 92 million media impressions, correct?
Right. And that would speak to the fact that each individual of jury eligible.
Sorry Sorry, was the defense low the entire time? I just turned up a little bit. I had it turned down because the expert on the Zoom call is like really like loud. I didn't want to kill your guys' ears.
Age, I'm sorry, that would speak to each person in that designated market area, in this case, the entire state of Florida, has the capability, and as the prosecution pointed out, a person can consume more than one story. And as the model for memory shows, each time you see another mention, you have the potential to strengthen your knowledge on details of the story.
And slide 2 of Exhibit 3, you indicated in your direct testimony that this represented, there were some peaks and valleys when the volume of coverage was greater or lesser. So if I were to tell you that the initial arrest took place in 2016, would that correlate with the data where there was a significant increase in the number of stories?
Yeah, we would look through that number to make sure that you're correct, but that fact that you state is, or would be indicated by that peak.
And the same, in 2019 was the initial trial. Would that also correlate with the peak in the data that's identified in exhibit slide?
Yes, anytime there's an element to a long-running topic in the media of significance, you'll see a peak like that.
And so is it fair to say that the length of time, or when key events happen such as trials, the media coverage increases?
Yes, and that's a simple function of the media. They want eyeballs, and they know what stories have interest to the community they serve, or may not have an interest to the community they serve.
Just a moment. And one last question, Mr. Murphy. Based on the analysis of the data that was collected,
Hasn't she asked for like a venue change like 3 times now? I don't remember Kirsten. I get everyone all mixed up. I know Corey Richards has. I know, what was the other case that we're covering? Corey Richards, Donna Adelson. Hold on, there's another case that we're covering that also asked for a change of venue. The Koberger one that was successful. Who am I not thinking of? Let me look at my cases. Lori. I don't think Lori did. Lori wanted a new judge. I knew that. Donna Boone. No, not actually. You know what? Surprisingly, Sarah Boone never put in a motion for a new judge, did she? Or a venue change, right? I don't think she did. Yeah, Corey Richards, Donna Adelson, and then Brian Koberger. There has to be someone else in my head that I'm not remembering. My bestie lives in Tallahassee. She has no idea who the Adelsons are. Yeah, that's why I think, like, for us, it feels like there's no way there's no one that doesn't know who Donna is, or, like, Lori Vallow. But I have friends that don't know fuck all about any of these people. They don't follow true crime. They follow the news. But, yeah, they don't know any of these people. Now, if it was Harvey Weinstein, on the other hand, that might be a tough one. Harvey Weinstein. But the question isn't like, oh, well, if you heard of them, you know, like, have you heard of these people before? Oh, you've heard of them? Okay, then you can't be on the jury. It's like, well, if you heard of them before, is it possible that you could still be a fair and partial juror to this case? Have you made up your mind already about this case, right?
collected in this case, is it fair to say that the overwhelming number of publications and
Donna has a very inflated sense of self-importance, methinks. Yeah, Donna, Lori Vallow, Sarah Boone. I was surprised how many people didn't know who Sarah was. Yeah, my friends have never heard of the suitcase murderer. Because when I mentioned the suitcase murderer, they're like, what? How do you murder someone with a suitcase?
The analysis of the data that was collected in this case, is it fair to say that the overwhelming number of publications and broadcasts took place or were presented in Leon County?
Could you say that one more time, please?
Sure, sorry. Based on the analysis of the data that was conducted in this case, would you agree that the overwhelming number of publications and broadcasts concerning the story took place in Leon County, Florida?
That is correct, yes.
And that statistically speaking, Miami-Dade County, with a significantly greater population, has a significantly less media exposure in this case.
That is true.
Nothing further.
Mr. Murphy, that concludes your testimony during this hearing. You may remain on the Zoom if you desire to do so. I'm now going to speak with the attorneys as to their arguments on the law or any other evidence if they have to present it.
Thank you, Your Honor. Is it standard operating procedure that I will remain, or do people?
I think they can go. Okay, the audio's gonna be so much better now because the expert is gone. All right, expert is gone.
So friends, have any other witnesses or testimony as a part of the presentation?
No, Your Honor.
Very well. State, you may make your rebuttal presentation if you have one.
Judge, all I have is a thumb drive that I prepared as State's Exhibit 1.
Brian, hey Brian, how are you doing today? Donna, being the queen of Don't You Know Who I Am, cannot fathom that people aren't glued to the edge of the seats thinking about her. If anything, I feel like there'll be more people that would know about Donna in her local area, Miami, if that's where she's trying to get this move to.
I intended for it to contain the 3 prior jury selection transcripts on the related cases, but for some reason we weren't able to find the first one, so it contains the most recent 2 transcripts of jury selections conducted in the related cases.
Oh, okay. So they brought this up. We were just talking about this earlier, because they could also talk about how they were able to find a jury pretty quickly, maybe in the other previous cases. So for like Charlie Adelson being the most recent, before that, Catherine McBenoit, and then the 2 hitmen, which is like way before 2020. But I guess the defense, like I said, could argue that, well, it's already been 2 years, 3 years since Charlie Adelson was convicted. So since then, there's been more media coverage. I don't know if that's the truth or not, but I'm assuming that's something that they can argue. I honestly haven't been following the Adelsons until stuff with Donna started happening, but I still don't know much of the evidence against her or anything. It's just like the code words with the TV. They had their phones wiretapped. There was the bump where essentially they were kind of like at a standstill with their investigation. So they had an undercover agent go up to Donna and then say that, like, hey, the hitman has been, need some money. They've been taking care of you, been doing shit for you and your family or something like that. Essentially just trying to get like the conversation going again between Donna and her family members about Dan Markel's murder. And so they went up to Donna and like gave her this thing saying that, like, hey, like, we want you to give us like $5,000 to take care of, I forget what the name was. And then from then on, they wiretapped the phones. So Donna called Charlie and was like, hey, like, someone just came up to me. And he's like, oh, okay, well, don't say it over the phone. What is it about? And she's like, oh, well, we're both involved. Just like small little stuff like that. The wiretapping the bumps. And then they had emails that they went over in Charlie Adelson's trial. But I did not watch all of Charlie Adelson's trial. I only watched some of the witnesses' testimonies. So I'm assuming in this one, we'll probably have Donna Adelson's like cell phones, more email communication, and yeah, the crazy emails. That's what I'm looking forward to reading, the fucking emails. We'll see what happens with the emails.
Defendant cases. I'd like to admit that for your consideration.
Is there any objection from the defense?
I don't think there's a legal objection to that, Your Honor.
How is Woody not charged with anything yet? I guess like the state is just taking a slow approach where it's just like, hey, let's get the people that are directly involved, meaning the people who actually murdered Dan Markel, to the person that worked with the hitman, to the person that worked with the woman who hired the hitman. So I think they're like doing a really slow roll of getting everyone like one by one. So I guess, maybe there's an active investigation to Wendy, maybe not. Maybe they don't have enough against Wendy. Maybe they don't think Wendy was involved. But a lot of people think that Wendy was involved because, when you watch her police interview, it's like she definitely had to fucking know, and the weird route that she took to go to the liquor store and how she ended up on Dan Markel's neighborhood after the shootings, as if she wanted to confirm and see it for her own eyes. But yeah, this was back in 2014. So it's been, almost 11 years, because Dan Markel was murdered in 2014, but was it in July, right? I think it was in July. So I think almost 11 years.
states one as the thumb drive is admitted as well.
All right, so we're admitting thumb drives, podcasts, platforms. All right.
5 is listening to podcasts. 77 pages long, individual podcasts. There is some overlap between platforms. However, it's not just the podcasts that we're asking the court to consider, but also what people are saying during those podcasts. The effect on the listener that those podcasts have and the comments that the public makes are where we are seeing the most significant prejudice. The vitriol towards Mrs. Adelson, to her son, to her daughter, and we also see in those a number of podcasts. I ran a search yesterday. I counted over 20 different episodes just focused on inadmissible information. As Your Honor is aware, prior counsel in the state, you had an in-camera hearing last September. I'm not going to go into detail about what was contained in that. Unfortunately, back in December, when Your Honor authorized that to be transcribed, it was not sealed when it was posted to the clerk's website. Media outlets from all over the country obtained that information. They obtained the transcripts, they published the transcripts in full, they analyzed them in their podcasts, so now...
What's the December transcript again? Donna Adelson, December transcript hearing. What happened in December? Conflict of interest? I don't remember what happened in December. There was a transcript in December that was supposed to be sealed. Let me see. Oh, read it. Interesting. Recently unsealed hearing. Rob Adelson. Oh, is it the the one about? I don't remember that though. Was that a transcript or was that a court doc? There was like some accusations that Donna was trying to witness tamper, and one of the witnesses included his son, the eldest son, Robert Adelson. Is that what they're talking about?
What Your Honor has ruled to be inadmissible is out there. It's out there, and as I said in my motion, you can't unring that bell. One of the facts...
Okay, but like, I mean, can they select a jury pool that doesn't know shit about that? I think they probably can. That's like for people that are like really following the case. In my opinion. Let me see. What's going on in December? Let me see if I can find out what he's talking about.
Factors is whether the publicity has included information that would be inadmissible at trial. In addition to...
Transcript sealed. Transcript of sealed. Damn, who uploaded it without sealing the transcript? Yikes. Well, mistakes happen. Cases. Did I save it? Let me see if I have it saved. Adelson family, 2024. Transcript in camera. Oh, is it this one? Oops, I do have it. What is this transcript about? Alex Morris. Slurs. I don't remember this. Who was using slurs? Oh, hold on. Hold on a second. Did someone accuse Donna of using slurs? Who was it towards? It was found inadmissible at the end, though. They did a deposition. They said that Donna's pretty sharp. Or that Donna's gullible? No, Donna's sharp. She's not someone who is gullible or could pull the wool over their eyes easily or something like that. Okay. Who is this person, though? So this is a transcript that was uploaded in December, but it's from a hearing that happened in October when Rashbaum was still the attorney. Oh, hold on a second. Is this her son saying that Donna was like using slurs or something? Oh, yeah, I think so. Mother-son relationship. Okay. I didn't know that this transcript was supposed to be sealed. I must have downloaded it before they sealed it. Oopsies. Yeah, something about Donna's a very smart woman. Donna's very sharp. She's not gullible. So I guess like that goes towards I don't know, maybe he was trying to say that, hey, Donna's not a gullible person. Like if you're trying to argue that Donna was gullible and she was tricked by Charlie Adelson into being involved in this murder for hire scheme, maybe don't believe it. I mean, I guess since it's supposed to be sealed, I'm not going to read it, but I feel like we already have covered this, though, in a live stream somewhere. Okay, and the court is saying that because of a highly inflammatory nature, putting a racial slur before the jury, similar to you, I can imagine a context in which this would occur. All right, and there's like some slurs. I don't know. I don't know what Donna said. Damn, Donna. All right. Let me go back to the hearing. Going back to the hearing, guys. I wonder who the slurs were directed towards. Was it directed towards, you think, Robert Adelson's wife at the time? Because Donna Adelson had an issue with Haritha. And then she also had issues with Dan Markel. Seems like she just had issues with her children, significant others. I wonder if she got along with Charlie's significant other. Or, I don't know if Charlie's even married or not. I know that he has a kid, but I don't know if he's married or if it's like, he had a child with like his girlfriend or something. I don't know. I remember hearing Charlie was kind of a, I don't know, a ladies' man or something like that. Is that what it's called? Ladies' man?
That inadmissible information.
He had a lot of girlfriends.
You know, we still don't yet know which audio recordings the state intends to seek to admit in the trial. However, there are audio recordings that we submit would not be admissible against Mrs. Adelson. It's our position, Your Honor, that co-conspirator exception, the conspiracy ended when the murder took place. The conspiracy did not continue to extend beyond that. As a result, any of the statements that were made in 2016 on the wire by other individuals, other than Mrs. Adelson, are not included under the co-conspirator exception. And those would be...
We would have to, I think, handle this through a separate motion in limine or argument as to that hearing, but as to the completion of the murder...
I know, it's still baffling to me that they bought a one-way ticket. Those motherfuckers were so cheap, they couldn't even do a round way. Oh, not a round way, a round trip. It's like, at least get a round trip ticket, jeez, to make it look like you were going to come back. Damn, she bought a one-way ticket. I'm like, how much money did you save on that? I mean, she would have probably get pulled regardless, but I mean, come on. At least make it look like you were trying to come back. You know, at least if you did get caught, you could argue like, hey, no, I bought a round trip ticket. You know, I had intentions of coming back.
being one part of it, yes, as the conspiracy being ongoing for the conspirators never to reveal what their role is. Does that ever hit, Mr. Zellman?
I'm sorry, what was the last part?
For the persons who may have participated in the conspiracy, would that not always be an ongoing thing, so their role is never revealed?
The way that this is charged, Your Honor, I would say no. It's charged with conspiracy to commit a murder, not conspiracy to cover up a murder.
Very well, please continue.
So you have, it is our position, inadmissible
Oh,
information.
is that two separate charges you can charge someone with? Conspiracy to commit murder and not a conspiracy to cover up a murder? Is that what?
That has been publicized. And it's nobody's fault for the vast majority of the information. This case has been tried 3 times. Each trial has been live streamed. All of the testimony has been publicized. So as to what could have...
Maybe he was being facetious. I think he was being facetious. Like, I wasn't sure. I don't fucking know. Conspiracy under law. Because there's a conspiracy to commit a murder. Okay. Oh god, this article's too long to read on stream. Okay. Keep it going, Mr. Attorney. Mr. Zellman.
Have been done prior to our involvement on behalf of Mrs. Adelson. All of that evidence was already out there. And it's our position, Your Honor, that with respect to those statements that are not admissible as to Mrs.
If you're dumb enough to announce you're running away from arrest on a recorded prison call, you're most definitely also dumb enough to purchase one-way tickets. I think she didn't know the call was recording because she thought she hung up, right? Because I think initially I thought that she said she was going to, maybe off herself, that she was going to escape and all that stuff. I initially thought she just told Charlie that, which I was confused. I was like, why would she tell Charlie that if she was, she knows the call is recorded? But then it makes more sense if she thought that the phone call was, she thought that it was terminated, but she just forgot to hang up the cell phone on her end, and it continued recording all her fucking plans and the people that were there. Ah! Thank goodness. Thank goodness.
On behalf of Mrs. Adelson, all of that evidence was already out there. And it's our position, Your Honor, that with respect to those statements that are not admissible as to Mrs. Adelson. And to back up, Your Honor, once the state identifies which wire recordings they intend to use, we certainly will file a motion limiting and ask for a pretrial ruling, so we're not dealing with that during trial and potentially wasting the jury's time. But we can't do that just yet, because we have to wait for them to identify the calls.
And you're referring to the most recent wiretap or the wiretap from 2016?
Both.
Very well.
Wait, sorry. Are you referring to the most recent wiretap or the wiretap from 2016? What's the most recent wiretap? I know that they wiretapped Harvey's phone because they thought Donna and Harvey were trying to intimidate witnesses. Is that what they're referring to, or something else? I don't see why they would refer to that, though, because they've already kind of, I think, axed that. I think that wasn't proven. Does anyone know what other wiretaps they could be talking about?
Another factor that Manning tells us
Because the 2016 wiretap was the one that was after the bump.
to consider is the timing. Preston Oates tell us the timing of publicity relative to the incident and the trial. So historically, courts have said, okay, well, we're going to continue this trial a year, 18 months, 2 years, so that the original publicity has died down, and that won't factor into potential jurors' minds. That's not something that exists in this case. As exhibit, let's see, I believe it's exhibit 3, indicates the publicity that is taking place in this case has not died down. There's been an ebb and flow over the years. So initially in 2014, there was, obviously that's when it first happened, there was significant coverage. That died in 2015 during the investigation. And then in 2016, once the arrests were started, the initial plea by Mr.
I mean, it's been ramping up, I guess, because for the last, 6 months? What? I don't know if I even remember what happened in the last 6 months. In the last 6 months, Donna and Harvey were accused of witness tampering. They had their shit wiretapped. I think ultimately it was found that was unproven. Then there was Donna's trial being delayed. And then there was Donna saying that she didn't like the conditions of her jail cell and that she wanted to be released until her trial. You're probably trying to run away. And then Donna testifying about how she was being threatened by the inmate and how she was forced to buy commissary, and then she testified. She tried to get the judge removed from this case. A lot has happened in the past 6 months. And that's only naming probably just 5 of them on my hand. I think there's more. You don't remember what you did last week? Fair enough.
Rivera was entered, and Ms. McVanner was arrested. There was a great deal of volume of coverage. 2017 and 2018, it died down. 2019, the first trial, it increased significantly. And then in 2020, 2021, it died down. 2022, during Ms. McVanner's second trial. 23, for Mr. Adelson, Charlie Adelson's trial. 2024, 2025, all of those increased. And as Mr. Murphy indicated in his testimony and in Exhibit 3, specifically slide number 3 of that exhibit, the media coverage in 2025 is on track to suppress last year's totals. Last year's media impressions exceeded 92 million. So it tells us that the timing of publicity, it's not going to die down. It's going to continue to circle. I mean, we're sitting here, we have reporters typing behind us. This hearing is probably being broadcast live, and
Shit, he knows I'm here. Hide. Quick, guys.
so that weighs in favor
We're exposed.
of granting the motion.
Do the defense filings or filings by the state in particular play any role in those?
I'm sorry?
Do the defense filings or filings by the state with the pleadings play any role in those?
I don't know that I can answer that. It's one of the reasons I think that we had filed the materials in support of this motion under seal, so that the information was not highlighted again for the media. We obviously, court records are public with limited exceptions. So.
Hey, Leslie, how are you doing today? Thank you. You want to rewatch? Oh gosh, Debt Be Heard. Dude, I'm good on Debt Be Heard. I don't know if I can ever rewatch it. There was like a Netflix doc that came out, and I felt like I was so Debt Be Heard out that I was like, I can't even watch this. Like, I'm done. We're done. It was just too much. But yeah, it would be interesting to rewatch it again, maybe like 10 years down the road. Jeez, I don't know. Amber's she's just crazy. She's crazy. I did hear that she had twins recently. Actually, I feel like no one really reported about it, but I saw it on her Instagram or something like that. She had a baby twins.
So I don't know how that factors into it.
Very well. You may continue.
With respect to all of the podcasts that have been identified in Defense Exhibit 5, as well as any commentary that is contained within those podcasts that members of the public are able to provide their own insight on. Your Honor, reviewing that information, becomes clear that the community's hostility towards the defendant is overwhelming. The sentiment from all of those podcasts, not necessarily the host of those podcasts, but for a vast majority of them, yes, for the host, but for the people who comment on those podcasts.
All right, guys. He's basically asking us for some more. We gotta stop the hate comments. We need to have some supporting comments for Donna. Okay, more comments of support for Donna, please. More love for Donna. Show your love and support for Donna Adelson in the chat.
Podcast, the vast majority of it exhibits hostility towards the defendant, and in almost every single one of them, where you have the talking heads offering their opinions, the vast majority of them offer their opinions about Mrs. Adelson's guilt or innocence and are publicizing it. And the vast majority are saying that she is guilty, and they are skewing the reporting in a way to support their theories. All of that's in evidence, Your Honor. I'm asking the court to consider that in reviewing the factors that the court is supposed to consider.
This case is so wild that there is nothing you need to skew. It's already out there, and it's pretty fucking crazy. Like the details that we know so far, the wiretapping stuff that we heard, the body cam. Well, we only saw the body cam with Donna and stuff like that. Like. And then Donna trying to escape and go to fucking Vietnam. You don't need to skew this in any way to make it in our favor or against Donna's favor. The shit's out there. It's bad for Donna because it's bad for Donna, not because people are contriving the details to make it bad for Donna. It's pretty bad for Donna.
And I want to highlight, Your Honor.
Love for Donna Adelson. Donna's awesome at laundering money with a washing machine. True. She should have her own laundry business. Oh my gosh. Yeah.
Before I wrap that up, actually, there is another factor that needs to be taken into consideration, and that's when a confession is featured in news media coverage of a prosecution. Confession of Mr. Rivera and Catherine.
Donna displays robust self-confidence and a comprehensive knowledge of non-extradition political geography. Look at you guys. You guys are so nice.
Banwa. It's not only been published, but their testimony has been broadcast on live television, summarized in local print and news media, as well as the podcasts. Now, I recognize...
Let's break them down as individuals, because with Mr. Rivera, I believe his testimony has always been that he went and did a murder for hire as a paid job. He did not know who essentially the principal was, but it was organized through his friend's girlfriend.
Correct.
In that way, how exactly is that a confession that implicates your client?
Well, I'm trying to find that part here. Mr. Rivera is not as significant a factor as the testimony of Ms. McDowell. Her testimony in Mr. Adelson's trial, her proffers, transcripts of which have all been released to the public, and the recordings of which I presume have all been released to the public, detail her recitation of what happened and directly tie into Mrs. Adelson's alleged.
I mean, I know that Catherine McBanois admitted that Donna Adelson was there when Catherine went to Charlie's house and that the money was wet and stapled. Did she say anything else about Donna? And then also Donna was cutting her the checks for working at her, non-existent position at the dental office.
Involvement in this this murder. So now I reckon that factor comes from Oliver, as I indicated in my memorandum.
Question, Brian, are you a manager by any chance? I feel like I'm getting manager vibes from you because that sounds like an employee. You know, when you do your like quarterly or like your yearly employee reviews, I feel like I'm seeing the same language here. Donna displays robust self-confidence and comprehensive knowledge of non-extradition political geography.
Recognize that Oliver has been restricted and refined. In Hoy, one of the cases that restriction refines Oliver, the detective summary of the confession was published, as well as 3 contradictory statements made by the defendant. Here, no statement by Mrs. Adelson has been published, except for the statement that was released, I believe, back in 2016 by her then attorneys, denying any involvement. However,
That was a statement she made, or just that the attorneys made in response to a press release?
it was a press release from her attorneys.
Directly quoting her, or just
No.
on behalf of the family in general?
Is on behalf of the family. That's the only thing I believe that is.
Donna's continued a deep understanding for her son Charlie, even when he was hooking up with the criminal underworld, and kept supporting him and making his dreams come true. Very supportive mother, almost extremely so. Definitely extremely so. A very involved mother in her children's life or children's lives.
Has been published on behalf of Mrs. Adelson, but it's not a statement directly from her.
Please continue.
So you have the confession as another factor there. And what I want to say, Your Honor, is quoting from Singer versus State, the Florida Supreme Court said, every trial court in considering a motion for change of venue must liberally resolve in favor of the defendant any doubt as the ability of the state to furnish a defendant a trial by a fair and impartial jury. Every reasonable precaution should be taken to preserve to a defendant trial by such a jury. And to this end, if there is a reasonable basis shown for a change of venue, a motion therefore properly made should be granted. A change of venue may sometimes inconvenience the state, yet we can see no way in which it can cause any real damage to it. On the other hand, granting a change of venue in a questionable case is certain to eliminate a possible error and to eliminate a costly retrial if it is determined that the venue should have been changed. Your Honor, it's our position that although a jury has been seated previously, media coverage, and again, when I'm saying media coverage, I'm referring not just to print and broadcast, but also to the podcast that are in evidence, overwhelmingly points to the fact that seating a fair and impartial jury in this venue is going to be impossible, and in order to avoid the expense associated with making that attempt, the court should now grant the motion for change of venue.
As to both Singer and the cases that follow it, does this argument account for the most recent Florida Supreme Court precedent on this topic? The cases that go to not only must there be prejudicial media coverage, but there was an attempt to seat a jury and you could not seat one.
Your Honor, it's our position that the case law is still valid. I'm not sure exactly which case Your Honor is referring to. I'd be happy to look at it.
Smith versus State, 320 Southern 3rd, 20. Case from 2021,
I'm sorry, Your Honor, you said it was 320 Southern.
3rd, 20. Donald Smith versus State of Florida, and deals with, this is a death penalty appeal, but deals with change of venue along with other issues. Cites to Griffin versus State and Rawling versus State, and deals with the issue of pretrial publicity.
Can I have a moment to review that, Your Honor?
Go ahead.
One of them, I believe in Griffin, Your Honor, trial counsel didn't file a written motion, brought it up just before jury selection and didn't object when the veneer was sworn. Smith, same issue happened there. Smith attorneys did not renew their objection or request a final ruling on the motion for change of venue after the jury was selected. So those, I believe, are distinguishable from what we have here.
Ultimately, with that, we are not talking about an issue of review for fundamental error, as no review would even be ripe yet at this point. But as to the test that it lays out, in exercising discretion regarding
Oh, it's YouTube's 20th birthday. Wow. Why did I think YouTube's been out longer than 20 years? I guess it makes sense. 20 years. Oh, time flies, guys. Ah, time flies. Happy birthday, YouTube.
change of venue, a trial court must make a two-pronged analysis evaluating the extent and nature of any pretrial publicity and the difficulty encountered in actually selecting a jury. As to that, is that the applicable test that the court must use?
I would say that that applies when jury selection has been attempted, but my research indicates that no Florida Supreme Court case has overruled the test set forth in Singer that pretrial publicity on its own can still be a basis.
As a point of law, I don't believe your reading of Singer is wrong. However, these cases are refined over time. I believe Singer was 1959.
Yes, sir.
Cases that are almost as old as my father, they're still good, but they do change over time.
1959.
I agree, Your Honor, but it's the case law also cannot be overruled by implication. No Florida Supreme Court case has said definitively that Singer is no longer good law.
Very well. State, you may provide your rebuttal argument.
Judge, what I learned from the defense expert is that there's been a lot of publicity in this case, which I think we all already knew, as is their right to report on a case that's been of high interest to this community, and that we have a high probability that we'll encounter some prospective jurors who know something about this case, something I think we all already knew. What and how much and whether they formed a fixed or definite opinion are factors relevant only to those individuals and can only be learned at jury selection. Similarly, who has consumed inadmissible discussions of inadmissible evidence? We can only learn that by asking them who's listened to these particular podcasts, and I trust that the defense will do that. I also expect that it will be relatively few. Maybe I'll be proven wrong, but again, the fairness that we're guaranteeing her of this trial is through that jury selection process, that those jurors will be asked.
I enjoy him as a no-nonsense judge, yes. And there's like moments of levity that I really enjoy. I like seeing him smile and laugh.
Questions.
Unlike some other judges, you know, who tries to smile, laugh, and giggle, and then it's just like, no, it's not landing. Sorry.
That if appropriate, they will be stricken. To secure a change of venue, the defendant has the burden to show this court that there is a reasonable likelihood that prejudice against her in our community will prevent her from receiving a fair trial. How do we know if the facts or the media coverage of a case has prejudiced us such that the citizens of this community where this crime occurred are not capable of rendering a verdict based solely on the evidence that's presented in court? Except in the most exceptional circumstances, which I can imagine, to answer your question about Smith versus Singer, I can imagine, maybe a George Floyd or a circumstance where the answer might be to avoid attempting to pick a jury because there's no point there. But this certainly isn't a case like that. The defendant in their own motion cite Lozano. Lozano is a third DCA opinion, not binding on this court, and distinguishable from our case. But according to Lozano, a change of venue is appropriate where legitimate community safety concerns might influence a jury's verdict. Lozano was a racially charged incident in which a Miami police officer shot and killed a motorcyclist and his passenger, whereby they then crashed into two other citizens, injuring them. And it sparked...
Wait, what? Shot and killed the motorcyclist and the passenger? Why? Were they running away from a crime or something like that? Jesus. And then they crash into other people?
protests in that community immediately upon the incident occurring. There were riots in the Miami area, which caused school closures. 130-block area of the town was cordoned off for crowd control, and the use of tear gas was deployed against the members of that crowd by law enforcement. So in the Lozano...
Oh, that was back in 1989. I thought this was recent. I was like, oh, I've never heard about this before. 1989 sparked the Miami riot after Miami Police Department shot a black motorcyclist on January 16, 1989. Oh, 1989! Lloyd, 23, was fleeing from another MPD officer who was chasing him from an alleged traffic violation. A traffic violation? Jesus. Okay. Well, times were... I would say times were different back then, but...
opinion, the court said that a fair trial could not be conducted in an atmosphere in which the entire community was so obviously, penetrated by the feels that resulted from this incident, which was basically like a lightning rod in the community. And the
You
court
literally couldn't get through the courtroom door, essentially, to start the case.
Right. I mean, I can imagine a situation where you can't pick a jury under a situation like that, where the jurors are potentially concerned about their own safety or the safety of the community if they render a particular verdict over the other choice.
So they're basically saying Donna's case is nowhere near the Lozano case. Thanks, Trey, Donna.
Dan Markel's death was felt deeply by many in this community. I certainly would never argue the contrary, but it's distinguishable from an incident like Lozano, which involved a community reaction driven by underlying social, economic, political factors, widespread fears within the community, and is prone to sparking something like a violent outbreak. Nobody's going to start a riot based on Donna Adelson's verdict, whichever way it goes. Next, defendant cites Manning, a case in which there was a change of venue granted, but that cites McCaskill, where the test for venue was set forth, or the test for change of venue, I should say, but in which, in McCaskill, the motion for the change of venue was actually denied. And the court said a determination must be made as to whether the general state of mind of the inhabitants of the community is so infected by knowledge of the incident and the accompanying...
True, she's also one hell of an actress. Not a good one, but an actress nonetheless. Look at these nice comments for Donna. Should we forward them over to her in our little tablet? I remember the story my mom told me about. Hi, Corgi. Just getting here and a few minutes behind. Wow, the judge had that Supreme Court case ready to ask him about. Hey, Muhair, how are you doing today? Hello, hello. Hope you guys had a good weekend.
Prejudice, bias, and preconceived opinions that the jurors could not possibly put these matters out of their mind and try the case solely on the evidence presented in the courtroom. What the defendant left off of that quotation in her motion was the sentence that preceded that quote that I just read, which states, knowledge of the incident because of its notoriety is not in and of itself grounds for a change of venue. All we've got right now is suspicion that several jurors are going to have knowledge of this incident. We have a case that's gotten a lot of media attention and has gained notoriety in our community. But to conclude that this case has rendered our entire citizenry incapable of giving Ms. Adelson a fair trial there's no evidence to support that. Manning was also a racially charged case involving the murder of two well-liked white deputies by a young black defendant in a small rural community. There were about 31,000 people in Columbia County in 1976 when the Manning case occurred. A voir dire inquiry in that case revealed that every member of the jury venire had significant knowledge about the crimes. That is not what I anticipate we'll have here. It's distinguishable from this case where we have successfully selected 3 prior juries on related cases under similar circumstances with similar media attention. And I would reference States 1 for that, which is the transcripts from trials 2 and 3.
Well, to that point, and I don't think the state is really disputing the mathematic analysis that has been provided by the expert, there has been a spike as the various trials have gone on, correct?
Sure, there's more content out there. I think some of the content is the same that's being hit over and over. And I think the problem with the analysis from the expert's perspective is that we're just going to divide all the content by all the people.
No, she went with authentic pho, that's it. She was going to build a raft and cross oceans to come to us. She loves the American prison system so much that she's dragging this out. What a deep respect for the Florida taxpayers. It baffles me when lawyer needs a beginning for the defense. Wait, it baffles me when lawyer needs a beginning for the defense who have impossible... Needs a beginning. Needs a beginning. I'm not getting that part. But defense who have possible... Like, for the defendant who has impossible requests?
and spread it out evenly among all the people. And that's just not how the world works. Some people are going to pursue content. Some people aren't going to see it at all. Others are going to just look at headlines. Those people are still eligible to be jurors unless they formed a fixed or definite opinion about guilt or innocence based on those headlines. So to, divide all content by every eligible juror and say, oh, you've all got 376 exposures to this, you're all ineligible, is just fuzzy math.
So you're saying going from the general of what the math might be to the specific of if we take a random person off the street, we still need to ask, what do you know, what have you heard?
I think so.
Please continue.
I think that would be appropriate in this circumstance. I'm not saying it would be necessary or required in all circumstances, but certainly here, where the media content, yes, there's a spike because something's going on, stuff is happening, but it's the same, I think, going to turn out to be the same people consuming this stuff over and over and over again, and those people probably won't be eligible to be jurors. But as we've learned,
That's us right there. That's us. Us. We're consuming it over and over and over and over again.
from experience, there's going to be a lot of people that are still eligible, and I think we should at least try before we take this case away from the county in which it occurred and move it elsewhere. Certainly, I can't imagine a planet on which we move this case to Miami, which seems to be suggested by the defense.
Miami. Okay.
I mentioned when I was cross-examining the expert who had no knowledge of this, but I think that State's Exhibit 1 will reflect that about a third in our individual voir dires on previous jury selections had no knowledge of this case, which might be surprising to some of the people in this room who are consuming it regularly, but not everybody consumes this stuff. And about a third had very limited knowledge. Those people are still mostly eligible to become jurors. And then there's a third that have more detailed knowledge, and some of them didn't have fixed opinions and were still eligible to become jurors in the case. So while many jurors were disqualified in those proceedings based on their knowledge and their feelings about the case, there were plenty that weren't. We picked a jury in 2 days on the first 2 trials and in 3 on the third. On the third trial, we had a defense jury expert flown in from Manhattan to drill down specifically on individual voir dire regarding publicity. And that was a time-consuming process, and we still were able to successfully get an unbiased jury that was agreeable to both sides in 3 business days.
Wait, so, sorry. I was reading my emails really quick. Okay, we picked a jury in 2 days in the first 2 trials, and then 3 on the third. Oh. On the third trial, we had a defense jury expert flown in from Manhattan to drill down specifically on individual voir dire regarding publicity. Not bad. 2 to 3 days, not bad.
I'll review your exhibit, but do you recall of the jury that was actually selected, what was the breakdown of no knowledge, some knowledge, or stated they would set their knowledge aside?
My recollection is that it was roughly a third, a third, a third. But
And this is the most recent jury.
yes,
Go ahead.
I've just noticed that pattern both in voir dire, who we end up with, repeating itself throughout, my life that has become this trial. It's happening over and over again. So can I say specifically that what we ended up with was that?
Hey, Georgia, we commend you for this, okay? Dude, I wonder how old Georgia was when she first started on this case. Because, yeah, that's true. It's like 11 years of her life, too. Or not 11 years, maybe less than 11 years. Because they probably start getting on it in, like, 2016, right?
That breakdown, no. But that has been my observation over time, is like, gosh, there's a third of the community out here that still has never even heard of this thing. So I'm suspecting they're still out there. There has been a peak. Maybe we'll try and learn otherwise, and it won't be possible. I don't think that's going to happen, though, Judge. We were going to weed out the folks that are not eligible until we get down to a panel that's acceptable, and then we're going to proceed with other questioning. Since we've selected, 3 jurors previously, I don't think this recent spike in activity in media is going to somehow make it impossible to get a jury this 4th time. I did want to cite Copeland v. State. I have a copy for your.
Donna needs a trial to be in Miami because all the judges and prosecutors are in the same golf clubs Harvey attends. Yeah, because I was thinking maybe she wants Miami specifically because she's got some connections, some deeply rooted connections with people in Miami. With some of the rich folks, maybe like part of the community.
Honor on the defense if you'd like, but it's at 457 Southern 2nd, 10-12-1012, a Florida Supreme Court case from 1984, in which the court held that a widespread public knowledge about the case is not the focus of the inquiry on a motion for a venue change based on pretrial publicity. Rather, the critical factor is the extent of the prejudice. So what is the prejudice? Defense has really only pointed to these podcasts with opinions about guilt and inadmissible evidence being discussed to really talk about this hostility and this prejudice that's out there. And I think we need to ferret that out through the jury selection process to determine whether that has really infected the jury venire as a whole. I think we're going to find that it has not, and none of the expert testimony related to that. The court goes on to say in Copeland that if it is possible possible to impanel a jury that can be relied on to decide the case based upon the evidence and not be influenced by knowledge gained from sources outside the courtroom, then a denial of a change of venue is proper. Again, in Copeland, every member of the jury panel had read or heard something about the case, but because all of them said they could set aside that information and render a verdict based solely on the evidence presented.
So it's not enough to be dismissed just because you've heard about this case. You also have to say that, well, you know, I've heard a little bit about this case, but I could still be an impartial jury and I could still base my verdict on the evidence that's presented in this trial. Not what I've seen, read, or, you know, heard. Seen, read, heard, yeah.
In court, the motion for a change of venue was properly denied. I also want to draw your attention to Hanyard v. State, Hanyard, at 689 Southern 2nd, 239. So Supreme Court case, Florida Supreme Court, 1996. This was a death penalty case in which the court said that absent extreme or unusual situations, like what we saw in Lozano maybe, the need to change venue should not be determined until an attempt is made to select a jury. And this goes to the Smith case that Your Honor brought up earlier. In Hanyard, again, all the prospective jurors had heard something about the case, but each agreed they had not formed a fixed opinion about guilt. Each agreed to consider only the evidence presented in trial in making a decision, and so the motion for a change of venue in that case was also properly denied. We have not yet attempted to select a jury, but we have every reason to think we can, should, as recommended by the Florida Supreme Court. And Your Honor brought up Rawling v. State, and I highlighted that one as well, that outlines the two prongs. Prong number one, the extent and nature of the publicity. We do have extensive publicity, but I don't think we have sufficient evidence that the nature of it has been improper or inflammatory such to infect the jury venire as a whole. And the second prong, of course, is the difficulty encountered when actually selecting a jury. Again, we should, but have not yet tried to select a jury. And again, we have the benefit from the previous efforts to suggest that we will be successful in selecting a jury in this case.
I'm looking at the Adelson family. Imagine trying to make a legacy of philanthropy, and it's overshadowed by half of the family plotting a murder.
In page 3 of defendant's motion, she relies on Oliver for the proposition that published confessions should equal a venue change. Oliver was a case in which the Tallahassee Democrat published a summarized transcript of the defendant's confession before his trial. I think Your Honor got to this a little bit in your questioning of the defense, but Oliver's not applicable here because there is no confession here. If there's a confession of Donna Adelson, could someone please send it to me post haste? So hence, the confession of Donna Adelson has not been published. They cite the testimony of co-defendants, Magnano and Rivera, which one is not the same thing as publishing her confession as Oliver, as what happened in Oliver. And also, neither of these witnesses really offer testimony tantamount to a confession, Donna Adelson, which I think Your Honor pointed out. In addition, it should be noted that the Oliver case happened in 1968. Another factor Your Honor mentioned in your questioning of the defense, several of their cases happened quite a long time ago. The population of Tallahassee, according to Google, not very official source, was 68,000 in 1968. And when I'm guessing that the Tallahassee Democrat, no offense to my friends, was probably reaching a higher percentage of the community than they do today because of how many options we have today, how much media is out there, and the ways it has to reach us through our phones and otherwise. Today, as evidenced by inquiries of hundreds of prospective jurors in the last 3 related trials, as evidenced on State 1, many jurors abstain from local media entirely, choosing to get news online or from national outlets, an option that was just not available in 1968, or they, some of them abstain from news entirely and say, I don't watch the news. All right, so all the analytics provided by the defense presume that all the prospective jurors have had equal opportunities to review these stories, and that's simply not the case. Not all prospective jurors consume media the same way. They don't all watch any media that has anything to do with this case, and they certainly don't all do it with the same amount of thought or attention. All of this is fair game for exploration at jury selection and should be attempted before taking this case out of Leon County. There is reference, I thought we'd get more into it with the expert, we really didn't get there, but in the motion there's some sort of, there's subliminal mind control that the media does on us, which we don't really know, we can't really report at jury selection, but we
I'm kind of glad we didn't get into the subliminal mind control by the media.
might be biased and not be able to spit it out at jury selection. So
Maybe he'll listen to he'll listen to what she just said just now, and he'll include it next time.
to that, I would say until somebody comes up with a better system, we should stick with the one that's worked for over 200 years, which is the best we have, which is to ask them and rely on their statements under oath about their inner thoughts and feelings. I mean, if we have to read their mind to know what they're really thinking, they could be thinking a lot of things that could potentially disqualify them as jurors, not just related to guilt or innocence, but lots of other biases. So we obviously don't have a crystal ball. We don't have the ability to do that. And until we do, all we can do is ask them and rely on them, which I, observe jurors to take their oath seriously and to report as well as they can their inner thoughts and feelings on the subjects that we're inquiring about. The defendant's motion concludes with a citation from a concurring opinion in the Irvin case about the inability of a juror to set aside information that has saturated the media. Here again, this statement was authored in 1961, when it was possible for a media outlet to permeate a community in a way that is no longer possible. Irvin is, of course, still good law, as are all of these old cases that we're talking about. But as Your Honor pointed out, it's your decision it's within your discretion to make a decision based on the circumstances of this case that are present today, which are significantly different from 1961. 1961, in which very few women sat on juries, because they were only eligible if they voluntarily registered with the clerk, expressing a desire to be placed on a jury list. That's how we did jury selection in 1961. How many volunteers do you think we'd get if we ran?
Probably not a lot. Who here would voluntarily want to be a part of a jury selection?
Jury selection
Not me.
in that manner forever.
Things have changed. Time moves on.
In addition, in the Irvin case, that took place in Gibson County, Indiana, population 30,000 back in 1961. Again, very different from the demographics that we have here and the population we have to choose from here.
Really? Me? Okay, good for you guys. For me, it's like I can't do the, it's the sitting and uncomfortable seats for too long. Yeah, the breaks, yeah, I can't. You got a summons for a case soon? Ooh, maybe you'll be selected.
One consideration suggested by the Rollins Court is whether the media coverage in this case has been particularly inflammatory. And I mentioned that. I think the podcast could potentially rise to that level, and we certainly should inquire of the jurors whether they have been exposed to things like that. But on page 7 of her own motion, the defendant offers 12 bullet points of what she presumably considers to be the more inflammatory local headlines, none of which are particularly unusual, and only 2 of which mention her specifically by name. The motion goes on to state that her name and image could evolve into an unconscious negative conditioned stimulus when associated with words such as murder. And we digress there into an absurd result where the media can no longer report who in the community has been arrested for murder without creating a unconscious negative unconditioned stimulus such that, nobody who reads that
Nice. You have a master's in criminal justice. You're a bit of a nerd about this stuff. That's fucking awesome.
that newspaper can participate in jury duty. In conclusion, today's media landscape is a smorgasbord of opinion, news, fake news, and everything in between. For better or worse, most of us
My friend was on the grand jury. Should be available for like months. What I do for work, I might not, but that's okay.
navigate that information jungle to seek out, or at least train the algorithm to feed us the stuff we want to see, the stuff we want to consume, rather than being fed, in 1961 in Indiana, what the editor of the local newspaper wanted us to learn. I mean, I get golden retriever videos. I've probably gotten 367 golden retriever videos, and I certainly couldn't recite 80% of them, for your honor, if a gun was to my head. As evidenced by the prior jury selections and the related trials in this case, there just aren't.
Well, to be fair, he did say that things that are a little bit more traumatic, like murders and car crashes, might resonate with people more. But yeah, golden retriever videos. I mean, how can you not forget those? Or how can you not forget those?
That many jurors that are saturated with local media anymore. Just because the
Oh, you
local
don't
media
remember
is
those?
turning out a lot of material doesn't mean that our jurors are consuming or retaining or forming opinions based on that material. There is a local community interest in seeing justice to be served in this case, and there's not a legal basis to move it. The jurors that have been exposed will be appropriately questioned and stricken based on their answers, but it is a bedrock principle of American criminal law to try the case in the jurisdiction where the crime occurred. The defendant has failed to show that Leon County is inherently prejudiced against her, and as such, the state asked.
What was the, I think it was Arizona, the Lori Vallow trial. Didn't they say that you could get up to $300 a day for jury selection? Because if so, that's pretty fucking cool. I don't know if I remembered incorrectly, though, but I could have sworn it was the Lori Vallow trial.
Ask that you deny the motion, proceed to jury selection here in Leon County.
Well, as the relief that you're asking for, is it possible also for the court to reserve ruling and still have the jury selection?
Or was it 300 a week?
You asking me?
I'm asking you.
I think so, Judge. I think you might have to readdress it if you attempt to pick a jury and cannot seat an unbiased jury in this case.
Mr. Zellman, any response?
Yes, Your Honor. First, Your Honor asked the state some questions.
Oh, here it is. Okay, okay. Additionally, jurors who are not paid by their employers, we're in Arizona, by the way, while serving on jury may be eligible for earnings replacement from the Arizona Trial and Digital Evidence Fund, up to $300 a day. Unemployed retired jurors can receive a daily rate of 28 plus mileage. Damn. Oh, boy. Yeah, imagine if you got paid like $15 a day and you had to pay for fucking parking. Bro, the parking's probably like $28.
Questions about the jury selection in Mr. Charlie Adelson's case.
What was the breakdown of no knowledge, some knowledge, or consent knowledge aside for who was picked?
So I'm reviewing Mr. Charles Adelson's initial brief on appeal. That brief indicates that there were 130 potential jurors that were interviewed on an individual basis. Of those, 96 had heard about the case. Of those 96, 53 believed that he was guilty.
Those persons were never actually selected to serve on the jury.
Correct. The brief does not give a breakdown of...
Who was actually selected?
Correct. Now, I will say, Your Honor, that Your Honor will recall that there was one potential juror who claimed a lack of knowledge about the case. And, in fact, that individual had posted...
You got two young kids who rely on you. Oh, how old are they? I got to check for my driving. It was $25. Wait, what? I've never been called, but I'd love to. I'm disabled and have a lot of time on my hands. Oh, you guys are so awesome. I'm over here like, no, I don't want to sit there for a long time. No, the wooden chair seems like it would hurt my ass. Like, no, I think my back would start hurting, my neck. Like, no. One just turned 2 and one is 8 months old. Oh my God. They're so close in age. They could be like really close friends. Do they, well, I guess 8 months old is still kind of young, but how does a 2-year-old feel about the 8-month-old? My friend, had, I'm trying to remember how old her kids are apart from each other. I think they were like about a year apart. No, 2 years apart from each other. Yeah. 2 years apart from each other. And initially, when the baby was brought into the house, the sister was not happy. She would randomly go up to the baby and just like push him and then just run away and make him cry. But now they get along and they're friends and they're running around. And he's like, I think the youngest one is like maybe like a year and a half. And then the other one's like almost like 3 years or something like that. But yeah, initially she was like, you better bring that back to the hospital. I don't want this competitor here.
Negative.
I recall who. He was also shown the door.
Yes.
Therein, what is the prejudice?
Wait, hold on a second. One potential juror claimed lack of knowledge about the case, and the individual had posted negative. Wait, what? I want to know about this jury selection. Oh man, was this televised? Oh, they love each other. It's so cute. The Tyler's such a good big sister. Oh, I hate my sister. We're 2 years apart. My other sister is 7 years old. I love her. Oh man, wait, how old are you guys now? Do you guys still hate each other? I hated my sister when I was in my 20s and she was in her teen phase, and we like hated each other for like years. But now we're cool. Now we're cool with each other, you know. My brother and I are 2 years apart. We used to not get along at all, but better. It's better now that we're adults. Yeah. Sometimes, like, when you're just kids, it's just like, you know, you're, like, fighting for resources and shit like that, you know? You're, like, battling each other. In your 30s? Oh, my goodness. Well, at least you have another sister that you get along with. You're still hating her. I have a friend who, like, hates her older sister. Like, they can't even celebrate together. So when the parents have to do, like, birthday celebrations or holidays, the parents have to do it twice for each sister because they don't get along. I'm like, whoa, that's dedication right there. You know, I feel like most parents would just choose one kid that's their favorite and just be like, fuck it. You're in your 40s with 4 kids, 9 to 17 years old. Oh, man, I always thought it'd be really cool to be like a young parent. That way, when you're in like your 50s, you know, then like you have adult children to do stuff with. That's so cool. At least you're open about it. Don't go hiring any hitmen, though. Yeah, don't do the Donna Adelson route.
Well, that just begs the question. Does that mean that anytime you have a case such as this, You have to hire a consultant such as the one that Charles Adelson hired so that you can get that information and be able to present it to the court. I don't think that that is the way that we should look at things, Your Honor. Now, in response to the state's other arguments, the state has presented no evidence to contradict the studies that are cited in the defense memorandum. Historically, courts have attempted to mitigate the impact of pretrial publicity by conducting that individual voir dire. Unfortunately, the research concludes that that type of attempt to mitigate pretrial publicity is ineffective. Although I recognize that that is the approved, the courts.
Sorry, he's saying individual voir dire has been shown that it is ineffective to mitigate pretrial publicity. So you're just saying that the jurors are not honest with them, with the attorneys and the judge?
Historically have approved that method. However, the psychological research that is identified in the memorandum all stand for the proposition that that's just not how things work with the human brain. Just because somebody asks you, have you seen an article about Professor Markel's murder? Have you read any of the articles concerning Mrs. Adelson's alleged involvement? Have you formed an opinion? Unless you call somebody's attention to the specific article, it might not trigger that memory. That's what the research shows.
Before you go on that point, and I think in that way, this is where the constitutions have the interplay with each other. Obviously, Florida can offer more procedural process than what the federal constitution requires.
Yes, sir.
As federal juries are selected, the judge essentially drives the process, questions of venire. Does not the Florida procedure give you more rights and more ability in terms of how that jury is selected to drill into those issues of bias?
Yes, Your Honor. I'm not going to comment further, but yes, Your Honor. The procedure in Florida does give us more protections than if we were trying this case in federal court.
So between a pre-screening and then also a full questioning, you still believe that bias cannot be ferreted out?
Given the way that the human brain works, I do believe that, Your Honor. I will say, Your Honor, and this is contained in a footnote in my memorandum, if the court, it's footnote 3, if the court decides to defer a ruling or to deny the motion, the defense would request additional peremptory challenges as was approved by the court in Hoy.
Very well. I will review all of the exhibits that were admitted as a part of the hearing today that I was not able to do so prior to the hearing. I believe the jury's selections for McBenowa and Charles Adelson are the state's exhibits. The charts and graphs that previously were updated or I did not have access to. A written ruling will be issued. We are in recess.
Your Honor, can we reserve to file a supplemental affidavit to address the concern that Your Honor raised at the beginning of
Anytime when I see or hear FBI, I think of the FBI soundtrack that Emily Baker has on her stream. The FBI, the FBI.
hearing?
You may.
Thank you very much, Your Honor.
Oh no, the feds got Kat. What happened? All right, Donna's leaving y'all. All right, guys, everyone, give her a round of applause.
Sure.
Oh, is her hair tied too tight or something like that?
I mean, the jump drive, so I was already going to put sticky on.
There goes Donna.
Okay. Get the state's jump drive.
Donna looks like she's eating pretty well in jail. Oh, I forgot that she was complaining, saying that like it's all carbs, carbs, and carbs. Like she's not getting enough protein and shit. Bye, Donna.
That's the defense's.
This is called
Donna, don't forget we had kind words to say to you. Okay. All right. Sorry, it's going through my plate.
In reviewing the...
All right, guys. Well, that's it for the Donna Adelson hearing. The judge is going to reserve his ruling, and we'll see if he decides on a change in venue. Me thinks no. I don't think so. I don't think the defense put up enough of an argument, it seems, to convince the judge to change venue. I thought the state did a really good job in arguing back. I'm like, should I recap this? No, it's so long and I'm really hungry, so I'm not going to recap it. But we've been recapping through the entire time as we were watching this, so if you guys were paying attention, if you guys were here. She can't get the hair tie. Maybe not, I guess. Maybe it could be used as like a weapon or, contraband in jail or something like that. All right, y'all. So we'll see what the judge says. again, Donna Adelson did try to have this judge removed, and that was not successful. So maybe, some of you guys were thinking, oh, well, she wants to have a change of venue. That would also include, possibly having a new judge oversee this. So maybe that's a way for her to circumvent the motion being denied. All right, guys. So we're keeping an eye out on the Karen Reed verdict. That's still pending. They were sent home today. For Donna Adelson, we'll see what comes up for this one. And then I got to catch up with, I don't know, like, what's going on with Corey Richards? I haven't heard anything about Corey Richards' camp in a while. So what's going on with her? Did I see the Trump very sad birthday parade? I did see it on social media. I did. Although, is this supposed to be a parade, or is it like, it seemed like it was like set up like at a music festival or something like that. I don't know. But yeah, guys. Anyways, I hope you guys had a good weekend. I hope you guys take care, and I hope you guys have a good one. I'm gonna pop off, go outside, get some fresh air, and forget about Donna for the next couple of days or weeks, until we see more about Donna. But you guys go outside and enjoy what Donna can enjoy. Freedom. A bowl of pho. Trial for Corey 2026. Are you serious? I heard that 2026 was like possibly the latest, but damn, 2026? Oh, okay. I mean, as long as like the trial stuff doesn't overlap with each other. I don't know. If they don't move Koberger's trial, then I hope they move Donna Adelson's trial, because I don't want it overlapping. Oh man. All right, guys. Really? February 2026? Did I already know that? Wait, it's not in my court schedule, is it? It might be in my court schedule. No. Oh, I have the Blake and Baldoni trial in 2026. Oh yeah, they dismissed Justin Baldoni's defamation case against Blake Lively. But I think the judge allowed him to amend his filing, so we'll see what happens with that one. Yeah, enjoy the life that you guys have. Yeah, exactly. All right, guys, have a good one. Take care. Thanks for watching this with me. I appreciate y'all being here. Thank you so much for keeping me, entertained. You guys are definitely making me laugh over here. Oh, did she? She put a date on the community post? Okay. All right. All right, guys. I will see you guys, and I will probably do some catch with the Koberger stuff, because there's been some new documents that have been uploaded, and we'll see what's going on with that as well. I think Brian Koberger has a hearing. Is it this month? Brian Koberger. No. Oh, wait, there is a Brian Koberger. Yes, there's a Brian Koberger hearing this week for a motion to continue. That's not sealed. However, they do have a motion for the alternate perpetrators. That part is going to be sealed. Yeah, that's for Brian Koberger. Okay. We'll keep an eye on that one, too. And then we'll see you guys July 25th for the Lori Vallow sentencing. You guys have a good one. Take care, and I will see y'all later. Bye, y'all. Bye.